The ruby light of dawn spilled across the battlefield beyond the city's shattered walls, its soft warmth at odds with the wreckage of a kingdom. Robert Baratheon stood alone upon the cracked stones of the Gate of the Gods, Storm's End banners flapping behind him like tattered wings. His hammer, slick with drying blood, rested head down between his feet. He drew each breath as though the summer air were a draft of broken glass, raking his lungs with pain and victory in equal measure. All round lay the detritus of the night's final assault. Scuffed shields scorched by wildfire, pikes snapped like reeds, the red cloak of a fallen Kingsguard knight billowing in some playful breeze. Robert scarcely saw any of it. His eyes were fixed upon the distant spires of Maegor's Holdfast, crooked now against the horizon, as though the very stones of the Red Keep bowed before the new age he had hammered into existence. Within those walls, Ares Targaryen, mad, trembling, scorched, lay dead. Robert had found the king in the throne room, cackling as green tongues of wildfire licked the braziers beside the Iron Throne. The ruined man's fingers had been bloody stumps, torn to shreds upon the blades of his own seat. Even in death, Aerys's eyes had gleamed, ember-like, with some secret the world would never decipher. Robert felt neither triumph nor pity when he struck the killing blow. He only felt the hush that falls upon a battlefield at dawn, an emptiness vast enough to swallow triumph, vengeance, and every other name men give to victory. Outside, the streets of King's Landing smoldered. Flea-Bottom's crooked alleys choked with smoke, bakers' ovens, candlemakers' vats, the lantern oil of 100 hovels had fed the flames ignited by Arya's loyal pyromancers. Yet, the city still lived. A child's thin cry pierced the silence, then a dog's bark, then the weary clatter of armor as men of the north and the Vale set about quenching fires and ferrying the wounded. The city lived, and that meant the realm might live as well, if someone wise enough and just enough could guide it from the ashes. The hammer felt suddenly heavy, as though its weight had increased with every drop of blood it had spilled. Robert lifted it nonetheless and slung its leather strap over his broad shoulders. He made his way through the ruined gate, each bootfall echoing among the broken stones. Behind him followed a ragged honor guard. Northerners in patched mail, errand men in battered helms, a trio of Stormlanders still bearing the black stag upon a golden field. They had fought for Robert, bled for him, shouted his name to the high heavens. Now they murmured to one another in low, uncertain tones. No songs rose. Victory's cost was written too plainly on the crimson-soaked ground. Catelyn Tully met him in the outer yard. Her auburn hair, usually braided with watery blue ribbons of river run, hung loose and smoke-streaked around her shoulders. The embroidered trout at her collar was torn. Eddard Stark stood a pace behind, armor dented, his greatsword ice strapped across his back. There were flecks of ash in Ned's dark hair, and his gray eyes were as deep and cold as a godswood pond in winter. They had ridden through the night to reach the city after hearing of Robert's final charge. Catelyn's first act upon dismounting had been to scour the healing tents for wounded. Ned's had been to kneel wordless, beside those he could not save. Robert halted before them. Catelyn inclined her head, half respect, half apology for the chaos they had found. Ned clasped his friend's forearm in silent greeting. For a moment none of them spoke. The only sound was the distant hiss of flames devouring timber and cloth. "We hold the city," Robert said at last, voice rough from smoke and blood, and the howling of battle. "But a city is no kingdom. The realm must have a ruler." "Meh." Catelyn's gaze flicked toward the sky, as though searching for some omen in the curling plumes of smoke. "The realm will look to you, my lord. You broke the dragon's line. You won the crown." Robert's laugh came low and hard, like gravel grinding beneath a cartwheel. "Won it, did I? Aerys's blood still warms the throne. But what would I do with crowns and courts? I've had my fill of stone walls and gilded chambers. They stifle a man." He turned, gesturing past the gates to the fields beyond, where the sunrise kissed the rolling plain. "Storm's End needs mending. Shipwrights will be clamoring for coin, and the harvest ships must sail before autumn storms. I belong in the field, not upon a throne of rusted swords." Ned's brows knit. "The lords will press you. They will see no other choice." There's always another choice, Robert muttered, though his gaze had drifted not to Ned but to the woman standing at his side. Catelyn's pale lips parted, perplexed. An echoing rumble sounded above them, a courtyard door heaving upon its hinges. A man in Maester's gray robes emerged from the castle proper, flanked by 2 Stark guards bearing torches. The Maester's chain jangled as he hurried across the yard. "Lord Stark, my lady," he called, bowing. His eyes, brown and solemn, found Robert next. "And you, Lord Baratheon, you must come. It is the Queen." Robert's jaw tightened. What queen? Eris is dead. Yet he followed, boots clanging upon the stone steps that led into the Red Keep's inner sanctum. Ned and Catelyn kept pace. Torches cast galloping shadows upon the corridor walls, grotesque shapes of wings and claws that fled into alcoves as they passed. The Maester led them at a near run toward a modest solar on the keep's eastern side, once Rhaella Targaryen's refuge from her husband's madness. Now its cedar door stood ajar, and lamplight spilled across the rushes. Inside, Rhaella lay upon a low couch, her silver-gold hair unbound and matted with sweat. She clutched a bundle of cloth to her breast, humming a shivering lullaby in High Valyrian. When the Maester's shadow fell across her, the lullaby faltered. She raised glazed violet eyes. They held no fear, only the hollow resignation of a woman who had watched kingdoms shatter for half her life. Robert stopped at the threshold, breath lodging in his chest. He had expected to find Rhaella dead or fled. Instead, he faced a mother shielding her last child against a world that had already devoured her firstborn, burned her father, and raved beside her bed in the guise of a husband. What remained in her was not wrath, but brittle endurance, fine and sharp as shattered glass. Rhaella shifted, revealing the infant nestled in her arms. The babe stirred, a soft mule escaping rose-red lips. A tuft of downy hair, dark as a raven's wing, crowned the tiny head. No trace of silver, no dragons, only the plain humanity of new life. "My daughter," Rhaella whispered, voice frayed to a thread, borne upon wings of ash. Catelyn stepped forward before anyone else could speak, her healer's instinct greater than all politics. She knelt beside the couch and rested gentle fingers upon the Queen's damp brow. Her expression softened. "The babe is strong," she murmured. "She draws breath deep." She reached within the swaddling cloth and retrieved a minuscule hand, pressing her own thumb to its palm. The fingers clenched, startlingly determined. Robert stared, first at the newborn, then at the Northwoman at the Queen's side. Something shifted in him. Some immense gear long frozen by war's frost. He felt its teeth grind, felt the unsettling lurch of a new idea. Ned had moved to stand behind his wife, but now he looked to Robert, reading the strange stillness in his friend's posture. "What is it?" Robert tore his gaze free of the child. In that instant he saw not only the shattered realm, but every lord's ambition poised to swoop upon it like vultures. He saw the banners that would rise anew, the songs of freedom that would curdle into songs of grievance, the brothers who would once more lift blades against brothers when the next dispute of crown and coin arose. He saw himself, hand deep in a cask, flesh gone soft upon the throne's comfort, the laughter of old victories growing hollow in his gut. And he saw one slender avenue through which all such horrors might never come to pass. "She will need a guardian," Robert said, voice low. Rhaella's fingers whitened against the cloth. "I am her guardian." "The realm will demand more," he replied. "The dragon line ends with you and her, and dragons have sowed only fire for a century. Let this child live under another banner, one unbloodied by old sins. I spared the city rather than burn it. Let her life be proof the new king bears no vengeance against innocent blood." Catelyn's eyes widened. "Robert," he lifted a hand, "I will not rule." His gaze found Ned's. "You know why. The weight of crowns kills the heart of a man. Yet the realm still needs a symbol, one young enough to grow beyond the old feuds, strong enough to stand against every lordling who would exploit her name." His voice softened. "There is a girl in Winterfell, your daughter. 10 months old if the ravens fly true." Ned's breath caught. "Arya?" "Dot. Let the realm see the North's honor crowned, Let them know we rebelled not for selfish gain, but so that even the humblest child could sit the throne if she be bold of heart. A northern stag and dire wolf atop a southern seat. Old wounds healed a new claw. Silence fell, thick as peat. Outside the solar, the torches crackled. Far below, a bell tolled, mournful and hesitant, as though the city itself were unsure whether to weep or rejoice. At length, Rayella's head tipped back against the cushions. She looked upon Robert, her lips trembling. "You would raise a stranger's babe above my own blood." Robert knelt, heavier than before the battle. "I would raise all children above the sins of their fathers. Keep your daughter. Love her, teach her, she will be safe in Dragonstone under the guard I shall send." He swallowed. But the Iron Throne needs a face unmarred by dragonfire. Not Baratheon, nor Arryn, nor Targaryen. A child who will grow knowing a realm at peace. He paused, then spoke as though tasting the words for the first time. "Queen Arya of House Stark." The name sounded impossible. Like smoke turned to song. Yet the Maester, the Queen, Ned, and Catelyn all felt the tremor it sent through the air. Catelyn rose slowly, adjusting her cloak's clasp. "A babe still at the breast," she whispered, though her voice was not entirely dissenting. "She cannot even walk. Then she will learn to walk these halls as she grows," Robert said. "We will guide her. I will serve as Lord Protector until she comes of age. Ned, you will sit the Hand's chair. We will show the realm that no bloodline is sacred, no crown eternal save the one forged in the honor of free men." Ned's eyes glimmered with something between fear and awe. "Winter will howl when the raven brings this news to the north." "Let it howl," Robert growled. "We have heard enough of dragonfire and southern steel. Let the realm hear the wolf's cry for once." He rose, turned toward the door, and stopped. "Yet there is one more oath required." He looked back at Raella. "Swear that your house will raise no dragon banner against Queen Arya. Swear on your child's life." Raella drew a shuddering breath. For an instant grief twisted her features. Then something, resolve perhaps, settled upon her like frost upon a rose. She lifted the newborn, pressing her lips to the tiny brow. "I swear on the life that I hold," she murmured. "House Targaryen will not contest the crown. My daughter will know peace, or I shall die ensuring it." The Maester bowed his head, chain clinking. Robert nodded once. Then, "The realm is reborn." Outside the solar, word spread as wildfire never could. The Mad King dead, a northern infant to sit the Iron Throne, Robert Baratheon Lord Protector in lieu of king. Shock rippled through the holds and tents like distant thunder. Some lords raged, others laughed, most simply gaped in stupefaction. Yet the smoke in the sky did not darken anew. No swords were drawn. Perhaps men were too weary to object. Or perhaps, just perhaps, the prospect of innocence upon the throne soothed battle-scarred souls more deeply than any promise of gold or glory. Robert spent that night in the Queen's solar, quills scratching across parchment as he drafted proclamations. Ned and Catelyn took turns holding the Targaryen babe when Raella slept, though neither knew what to say to the bewildered child who would grow with no throne to claim. Each hour the bells tolled again, marking the march of time toward an uncertain dawn. When the first glimmer of sunrise bled over Blackwater Bay, Robert descended to the courtyard. His hammer still hung across his back, but its weight seemed lighter, as though burden and purpose had exchanged places in the night. Before the mustered lords he read the royal decree. Aerys Targaryen's line was broken. The 7 kingdoms would henceforth be bound beneath the crown of Arya Stark. First of her name, daughter of Winterfell and queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. Until her 15th name day, Lord Robert Baratheon would serve as Lord Protector, aided by Lord Eddard Stark as Hand, and by a council of chosen lords sworn to the child queen's welfare. The houses that bent the knee would find pardon. Those that rose anew would find only the hammer's justice. When Robert finished reading, the courtyard fell hushed. Wind tugged at banners haphazardly hung on splintered poles. Somewhere above them, the morning gulls shrieked their eternal hunger, the same as ever. Then a single sword rang free of its scabbard. Jon Arryn stepped forward, knelt, and laid the blade at Robert's feet. "The Eyrie bows to Queen Arya and the Lord Protector," he said, voice carrying clear. Others followed. A dozen swords grew to 100, steel glinting like mirrored sunlight across the stones. Some knelt slowly, grim-faced. Others fell to their knees as though unburdened of some great weight. None among them spoke oath of love for the North's infant. Yet in the mingled relief and fatigue that hung over them all, acceptance was enough. Robert lifted his hammer and planted its scarred head upon the ground. So witnessed, so sworn. From this day forth, let the realm see Eris's wildfire quenched and children crowned in hope, not hate. The men cheered, not the ferocious roar of battle, but a weary sound, the exhalation of lungs long starved of peace. It rolled across the courtyard like the tide, lapping at fallen stones, curling around broken spears, rising into the brightening sky where smoke-stained clouds parted to reveal a sliver of flawless blue. That afternoon, Robert stood upon the ramparts overlooking the city. Below, teams of carpenters and masons already measured charred beams for repair. Sailors dragged burnt hulls to the river's edge, mending what could be saved, scuttling what could not. The city's wounds would scar, but scars were proof of healing. He touched the parapet's warm stone, rough beneath his calloused palm, and let his gaze wander northward, far beyond the King's Road, beyond the neck, to the distant keep where a little girl gurgled, in a cradle of woven wolf furs. Queen Arya. Ted. The words felt strange still, like wearing a doublet too fine for coarse shoulders, yet each time he spoke them, his heart grew lighter. Footsteps approached. Ned joined him, cloaks snapping in the harbor breeze. "Ravens fly to Winterfell tonight," he said. "Catelyn writes to your brother Stannis as well. She wishes him to oversee the Queen's household." "No," Robert grunted. "Stannis will scowl, but he will serve. Duty is the marrow of his bones." He traced a scar along the rampart, wrought by a piece of fallen masonry. "I have set a wheel turning, Ned. 7 hells help us if it crushes the realm." Ned placed a steady hand upon Robert's forearm. "It will not," he said. "You gave them something unexpected, a future unshackled from the sins of old blood. There will be lords who sneer at a babe upon the throne, but lords sneer at any crown they do not wear themselves. In time, Arya's courage will silence them." Dem. Robert tried to imagine the girl, toddling through Winterfell's halls, wrestling direwolf pups, sparring with wooden swords. "She will be a terror," he chuckled. "I pray the maesters ready their salves for bruised shins and bruised egos alike." Ned's smile was fleeting but real. "Winterfell will raise her true and strong. When she is old enough, she will come south and sit the throne as a woman grown. Until then, the North will guard its queen from afar." A quiet settled between them, woven of dawnlight and the smell of river tar. Ships' masts swayed in the harbor like skeletal trees, rigging creaking softly. Robert breathed deep, tasting sea salt and distant pine. Somewhere far off, a raven's croak echoed, perhaps already bound for Winterfell with tidings that would change a family's destiny, and with it, the fate of kingdoms. That evening, Robert convened his new council in the small hall. Jon Arryn, Stannis newly arrived and scowling as predicted, Brynden Tully in lieu of his brother Lord Hoster, and Prince Oberyn Martell, bearing Dorne's grudging olive branch. Rhaella, face pale but resolute, sat as silent witness, nursing her daughter under the watchful eye of the maester. Though lords eyed her with suspicion, none dared slight the mother of a child spared by mercy. They spoke of grain stores and reparations, of charters to rebuild the guild halls burned in the sack, of amnesty for those commoners who had borne arms against their betters. They spoke for hours, voices rising and dipping like a tide. Robert listened more than he spoke, a skill few had credited him with. And each time discord threatened to flare, he struck the table with the butt of his hammer, a subtle reminder of the cost of pride. By candle's guttering end, orders were penned, signatures sealed, and the shape of a fledgling peace emerged upon parchment. Only when the others had gone did Catelyn return, carrying a raven's ribbon-sealed scroll. From Maester Luwin, she said. Winterfell receives the news with honor. Lady Lyanna names her granddaughter's wet nurse and asks when the child shall be brought south. Josh. Robert exhaled. The first thread in the tapestry was drawn. More would follow. Some frayed, some bright. But for the moment, the fabric held. Soon, he promised. But the road is long, and winter always nearer than we wish. Until the snows lift, Queen Arya should remain in the north. Catelyn inclined her head. Wise. She left him alone in the hall. Shadows leapt high upon the walls, thrown by a single dying brazier. Robert's gaze wandered to the Iron Throne at the chamber's far end. Even swathed in darkness, the swords glittered with malevolence, promising pain to any who dared settle upon them. Tonight, they would remain empty. Tomorrow as well. Perhaps for years, until the child with the wolf's name came to claim her seat. Robert slung his hammer across his back and walked from the hall. For the first time since the rebellion's first trumpet sounded, he felt no urge to hurry. The corridors of the Red Keep stretched before him, quiet as an old forest path at dusk. Somewhere distant, soft as a lullaby, a woman sang to her newborn. No broken secrets, no murmured curses, only the simple cradle song of life enduring within walls, once steeped in lunacy. The melody seemed to follow Robert as he strode toward the courtyard. It filled the emptiness left by victory, winding through the fissures of his heart like ivy reclaiming broken stone. Outside, the moon ascended over the black water, silvering the river's dark coils. Fires still burned along the docks, yet their flames felt smaller beneath that gentle light, subdued, almost timid. Robert paused beneath the gate arch, looking not at the fires but beyond them, toward the ghostly outline of the King's Road fading northward into shadow. Somewhere down that path lay Winterfell, and in Winterfell, a cradle, and in that cradle the future of 7 kingdoms, small and fierce, with wolf's blood in her veins and the weight of crowns already humming in dreams too young to possess words. Robert Baratheon, Lord of Storm's End, Hammer of the Trident, Slayer of the Mad King, smiled into the northern dark. He lifted a hand as if in silent toast to the infant queen across leagues of night, then turned toward his chambers. Sleep would claim him eventually. But for now he walked the moonlit halls, unhurried. The song of a mother and child trailing him like a promise that tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after, might hold something finer than war. Ikei, Pangal. Across the next 7 days, the city exhaled its terror in a series of long, shuddering breaths. Ash settled like gray snow upon rooftops, and priests in saffron, milk white, and muddy brown walked the streets sprinkling rainwater from cracked bowls, claiming the 7 had spared King's Landing for some inscrutable design. Robert let them preach. Piety was cheaper than stone, and for the moment, soothed as many hearts. Each dawn began in the Tower of the Hand, where Ned reviewed casualty rolls and quartermaster tallies by lamplight, while Catelyn nursed 100 small grievances into quiet resolutions. At midday Robert joined them, thumping through the chambers, still hung with Aaron Blue from Jon's temporary tenure as Hand during the rebellion. Jon now occupied spacious lodgings nearby, but the banners remained, fluttering in window drafts, silent reminders of the bloodless principles that had first drawn Robert, Ned and Jon together in the Vale when they were boys squired beneath the stern gaze of Lord John Connington. Ravens came and went in a steady storm. Baratheon pledging 200 wagons of harvest oats, Old Town requesting royal sanction to rebuild docks, scorched when pirate Lorca from the Stepstones took advantage of the chaos, Gulltown begging relief from tariffs that had bankrupted half its merchants during the siege. Each parchment carried a different scent, oils from arbor candles, the fishy tang of sea salt, the faint incense of the citadel, and sometimes Robert, bored of figures, pressed each sheet to his nose like a vintner sampling casks. "Smells like debts," he grumbled on the 4th morning, tossing 3 scrolls atop one another. "Debts and favors and the copper stink of expectation. I would sooner pour ale over the parchments and call them settled. Had we as many casks as parchment, I might agree," Ned replied, dry enough to crackle. He gestured to a ledger. "As it is, the crown's coffers are spider-webbed and empty." "Borrow," Robert snapped, Tyrush, Brevos, Old Town. Whoever will listen. You intend to trade the wolf's daughter for a purse the day after you crowned her? Robert scowled, corrected himself with a grimace of apology, and turned to stare out the lancet window toward the hazy hill where Sept Beeler's dome glimmered. She will never know how close every crown rests to beggary, he muttered. Perhaps that alone makes her fit to wear it. By the second week, Jon Arryn had coaxed an audience with Lord Tywin Lannister, lately arrived with a host of crimson and gold, that camped in neat rows upon the field outside the shattered mudgate. The Lion of Casterly Rock entered the Red Keep in burnished mail so highly polished the courtyard torches doubled their light against the plates. No son or daughter accompanied him, no Jaime, no Cersei, no Tyrion. That alone unsettled men who had learned to divine Tywin's plans by the placement of his children. Robert met him not in the throne room, but the yard where smiths hammered new shoes to battered destroyers. Sparks burst around them like captive stars while the Stormlord and the Lion exchanged curt bows. Tywin's green-gold eyes flicked to the black stag's sigil, stitched above Robert's heart, then to the hammer resting against a wheelbarrow of scrap metal. "The realm will thank you for sparing the city," Tywin said, voice even as cut granite. "I will thank you for sparing my coffers the cost of rebuilding one," Robert snorted. "If you've come to extend loans dressed as gratitude, spit it out. My gratitude is sincere. My gold, when offered, carries interest. You have need of both." Robert's jaw squared. "I have need of peace. Lannister coin can purchase many things, but peace is forged in sterner metal." "Peace is bought," Tywin corrected, unmoved. "Bought with coin, vows, fear, or marriage. Sometimes all four." Robert waved a sooty hand toward the forge fires. "We'll speak later. The hand will draft conditions suitable to crown and creditors alike. For now, the city smells of smoke. Walk its streets. Breathe its air. Decide whether interest is worth the risk. Now." Tywin dipped his chin, neither assent nor refusal. When he left, Robert's fingers trembled slightly where they rested on the hammer hilt. The Lion's composure had always bothered him more than roars. The roars a man could meet with steel, the silence seeped through cracks and poisoned wells of courage. By night, Jon turned the small council chamber into a schoolroom for rulership. Lanterns shed honey pools upon maps, where pins marked grain routes and disbanded sellsword companies. Stannis presided over naval affairs, jaw clenched so tight one might think debt carted new millstones into his skull each dusk. Yet it was Stannis who discovered a half-collapsed quay on the south bank that could be dredged and extended cheaply to ferry lumber from the Rainwood straight into the city, sparing months of road labor. Robert eyed his brother with newfound respect, remembering mornings at Storm's End when Stannis would inspect the stables for loose straps, while Renly hunted seashells. On the 12th evening, Varys appeared at council for the first time since Arya's death. His bald scalp powdered, robes of lavender silk whispering like moth wings. Robert's fist tightened reflexively, but Jon Arryn beckoned the eunuch to speak. "Oh, it's Varys Cood. The whispers tell of rats scurrying beneath the cobbles. Old loyalties are hard to bury. There are those who brood upon the loss of the dragon banner and dream of silver wings fluttering once more." "Name them," Stannis demanded. "The whispers give no names, only places. White towers where ravens do not return. Storm-shredded coasts where ships take new names at night. Hovels where sellswords sharpen blades while children sing of Valyrian fire." Varys brushed imaginary dust from his sleeve. "But fear not. I will listen closely. Should wings begin to sprout, we will clip them before they take flight." Robert leaned forward, knuckles whitening against the table edge. "Clip too soon and you sheer hope along with treason. We spared the helpless in this war. We will not rule through terror. Now." Varys's painted smile never wavered. "Of course, Your Grace." "Lord Protector," Ned corrected silently, though he bit his tongue. Titles in front of Varys were doors best left closed. 3 weeks after Arius, a ragged procession wound south along the King's Road. Sir Roderick Castle, mustaches bristling like snow-dusted shrubbery, old Nan muttering tales to keep nervous guards awake, and in a stout ox cart cushioned by wolf-pelt blankets, Lady Liara Stark cradling her granddaughter Arya beneath a canopy of coarse linen dyed stark gray. Maester Lewin rode a stubborn Garin beside them, habitually patting the satchel of powders and root tinctures slung at his hip, as though the health of a queen were something one might misplace between mile markers. When Robert received word of their approach, he ordered the Dragon Gate cleared of rubble and stationed Stormlanders on either side, shields freshly scoured. He wore boiled leather over a linen tunic, eschewing regalia for the sturdy garb of a warrior prepared to lift a child. The city's first glimpse of their infant sovereign must be unmarred by flash or frippery. Dawn the next day painted the gate pale rose. The procession crested the final hill, weary horses snorting. At each step small folk spilled from narrow lanes to stare. Some knelt, some crossed themselves, some merely gawked at the odd sight of a Northwoman of 250, rocking a bundle wrapped in white bear fur. Robert stepped forward alone. Sir Roderick swung down, bowed, and pulled back the cart's curtain. The girl within reached up, fingers flexing like tiny hooks toward the sunlit dust motes. Her eyes, gray as fresh split granite, fixed on Robert's shadow. She squealed, a burst of fearless delight. 7 hells, Robert murmured, awed. She greets her first army with laughter. Roderick puffed proudly. She bit 3 of us between Moat Cailin and Maidenpool. A hungry wolf is a healthy wolf, they say. Robert laughed and extended arms that had felled a mad king. Liara eased the child into them, guiding the massive hands until they learned the unfamiliar cradle. Arya squirmed, seized Robert's beard with surprising vigor, and tugged. Robert's bellow ricocheted off marble. Laughter rippled through the gathered soldiers. He hoisted her higher, beard safely out of reach. "Queen Arya," he proclaimed, voice booming over walls still bearing scorch marks. "Behold your city. See how it bends the knee." Ninandabashi. Dozens of knees struck stone, a ragged thunder. From high windows housewives tossed petals, dried winter roses imported from White Harbor, as blue-violet as moonlit snow. Robert turned in a slow circle, so the petals fell upon the infant's dark head like alien snowfall. Arya blinked up, tried to swallow one, and coughed, affronted. Inside the Red Keep, Jon Arryn greeted the North delegation. Beyond him, Ned waited, breathless despite the stillness carved upon his features. He had not seen his daughter since leaving Winterfell months before. As Robert strode into the courtyard, Ned advanced 3 paces and halted, torn between lordly decorum and fatherly desperation. His voice cracked. "Little one." Robert relinquished Arya into Ned's arms. The hand's composure melted. Tears streaked trails through grime on his cheeks. Liara Stark watched, eyes bright with pride and relief, while Sir Roderick discreetly blew his nose on a corner of cloak. Old Nan, half asleep in the cart, murmured something about the last Wolf King and drifted back into dreams. That night, Robert hosted a feast in the Queen's ballroom. The braziers were newly scrubbed, their bronze dragons polished so fiercely they mirrored faces in grotesque warps. The smell of honey-glazed boar mingled with aged arbor gold. Musicians from Dorne plucked lutes tuned to exotic scales that set even dour northern feet tapping. Yet politics braided through every dance step. Tywin Lannister arrived late, flanked by twin vaults of gold carried by iron-collared servants. A token for the Queen's coffers. He bowed low to Arya's cradle, then lower to Robert, who responded with wary gratitude. Oberyn Martell toasted the infant with Dornish red so dark it bordered black, and made quips about deerwolf pups outgrowing their keepers. Stannis lingered beside the hearth, counting cups consumed by others and drinking watered wine himself. At table, Robert leaned to Jon Arryn. "Which is dearer, do you think? Tywin's gold, Oberyn's daggers, or Stannis' silence?" Jon sipped sparingly. "The girl is dearer than all. They smell power on her like milk on the air. Keep her safe, and their coins, blades and tongues will follow." "Don Andres." Robert's gaze drifted to Ned, who rocked Arya near the dais, murmuring a lullaby older than kings. For an instant, Robert pictured the throne room 20 years hence, a young woman with wolf's eyes seated where twisted blades once flayed mad flesh. Could the realm be that patient? Could men such as Tywin and Oberyn swallow pride for that long? He turned back to Jon and poured more wine. "If patience fails," he said quietly, "my hammer will remember its trade." Autumn seeped into the Crownlands, subtle as a thief, laying cool fingers on sunburnt fields. Grain wagons queued beneath the city walls, and beggars clustered near bakeries to inhale bread steam that rose into cold dawn. Inside the Red Keep, talk turned to fosterage. Robert proposed sending Arya to River Run once she could walk, to learn courtesy under Catelyn's kin while staying close enough for the council's eye. Ned countered that Winterfell's Godswood was a safer cradle. Its silent weirwood teaching patience king's courts could not. Jon Arryn, ever mediator, suggested a compromise. Arya would spend summers in the north, winters in the Riverlands, and autumns in the capital for council sessions. Her childhood, a movable symbol stitching realms together. The argument ended unresolved. Lyanna Stark's death from chill fever the next week gave it a hollow pause. The old lady had complained of headaches on the journey south, but waved away Maester Pycelle's potions. She passed in her sleep, dreaming perhaps of moors under snow where the wind sang through broken teeth of tower ruins. Ned buried her in the city's northern cemetery, beneath soil soft as dusk's ash, and planted a pine atop the mound, promising to transplant it someday to Winterfell. The funeral drew the small folk in silent masses. They had no tie to Lady Lyanna, yet they came, drawn by an unspoken covenant. If they honored the dead of distant winters, maybe their own dead of smoky summers would be remembered too. Robert watched from afar and felt something shift inside him. Responsibility heavier than his hammer, forged from unseen grief. Months peeled away. Snow never reached King's Landing, yet frost silvered rooftops at dawn. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned marked Arya's first winter solstice by carving a direwolf figurine for her cradle. Robert gifted a miniature warhammer carved from redwood. Rhaella, visiting with her dark-haired daughter, warned him that tossing such a toy could crack skulls. Robert only laughed. Teach her aim, and none will mind. Rhaella's presence unsettled many. She walked the halls like a woman singing to ghosts under her breath. Her infant, Visenya, she named her, thrived. Fearless. Crawling fast enough that guards joked she had dragon wings folded beneath tunic. Some small folk whispered that Robert should marry the Queen Dowager to legitimize his protectorate, unite houses, quiet Targaryen loyalists. Robert ignored them. Marriage to him was another chain. He preferred wine and camaraderie to royal bedchambers thick with schemes. Besides, Rhaella still bore Aerys's scars. Burned along her arms, Robert glimpsed one morning when she reached to steady her babe. No vow should touch wounds wrought by monsters. Yet even he sensed tension when Rhaella and Tywin met by chance outside the throne room. Tywin inclined his head, respect glimmering like cold ore. Rhaella's spine stiffened. She knew Lannister men had breached the walls in crimson cloaks during the sack. Her son and daughter slain in the royal nursery by a knight sworn to Tywin. Robert placed himself between them, broad shoulders blocking sightlines, as though shielding two wild cats penned in a single cage. That night, Tywin petitioned the council. Casterly Rock would fund the rebuilding of the Royal Navy. Ships under Baratheon black and gold, not Targaryen red, in exchange for exclusive harbor tariffs for 3 years. Stannis objected. Oberyn scoffed. Jon reasoned. Robert compromised. Tariffs halved. Navy funded. Pride salved. Politics, he decided, was like chiseling granite with a blunt fork. Spring storms slashed Blackwater Bay. A merchant cog out of lace foundered on the southern shoals, spilling crates of turquoise silk across foaming surf. Children collected sea-soaked bolts, stitched the salty, stiff cloth into kites, and flew them above the ruins of Flea Bottom. One bright morning, Arya, toddling now with reckless abandon, escaped her wet nurse, seized a kite string, and tore across the yard, shrieking triumph. The kite whipped over parapets, a frayed dragon's tail streaming behind. Robert thundered down 3 flights of stairs to snatch her moments before she tumbled headlong into a drainage gutter. Breathless, he scolded the wet nurse, then instructed the armorer to craft a leather harness with reins, like a little horse's bridle, so the child could roam without plummeting. Queens do not wear reins, Stannis observed dryly upon witnessing the contraption. "Tell that to the queen," Robert replied, releasing Arya. She bolted, reins taut, stomping through puddles while her nurse puffed behind. Sometimes a bit of control keeps flanks unbroken. Stannis muttered something about dignity, but his lips twitched. Maybe a smile, maybe indigestion. Far north of any rains, the wall groaned beneath drifts, taller than longships. Ravens from Castle Black reported wildling scouts sighted near the shivering forest. Robert ordered double rations sent and offered coin for fresh volunteers. Lord Commander Corgyle thanked him, but cautioned that coin did not warm blood, gone thin in winter's clinch. Robert grunted, then scribbled a new directive. "Ship oaken casks of Storm's End's best fiery pepper wine north. If they cannot burn wood, let them burn their throats," he told Ned, half joking. The hand dispatched the shipment within a fortnight. Arya woke with night terrors that winter, screaming at unseen shapes her young tongue could not name. Ned took to pacing with her around the maiden vault, singing the bear and the maiden fair in a hushed, solemn voice more lullaby than drinking song. Robert sometimes joined, adding a rumbling baritone. When the baby quieted, she would press her ear to Robert's chest, as if the echoing boom of his laugh were thunder comforting her fears. One such night, Robert carried her to the ramparts. The sky was a lid of deep ink pricked by indifferent stars. He pointed to the hunter constellation. "See there," he whispered. "That is Garth Greenhand chasing summer with his spear. A king's duty, little wolf. Always chasing something bigger than yourself." She blinked, sucked her thumb, and reached for the stars. Council business thickened with the thaw. Rivermen complained that Lannister patrols seized tolls at the Golden Tooth, beyond what the edict allowed. Tywin produced ledgers claiming rebels had forged documents, necessitating inspection fees. Oberyn proposed sending Dornish swords to help the Lion Count. Robert vetoed with a slammed fist. Coins can be minted anew. Blood once spilled grows barbs on every coin thereafter. Pycelle cautioned that plague stirred in old Volantis, blooms on the skin like purple roses. Stannis argued closing ports. Varys demurred, citing trade collapse. Jon brokered middle ground. Quarantine islands in the bay, Lysine healers paid from Tyroshi interest. Robert marveled at how rulership required more needles than hammers. Yet hammers still had purpose. A sellsword band calling itself the Golden Sons raped and burned hamlets outside Duskendale. Robert rode at the head of 200 Stormlanders, caught the sons at a looted mill, and offered terms. Disarm, kneel, or face the hammer. They laughed. Battle lasted minutes. Robert shattered the captain's skull with a single swing so brutal it split helm, bone, and millstone. Survivors fled. Robert ordered them hunted. He returned to the city spattered red, eyes hot. Ned met him at the gate with grim approval. "Some debts are settled only in steel," he said. Robert washed in cold cistern water until blood whorls vanished down drains. That night he sat beside Arya's cradle in silence, staring at her steady breathing. His knuckles ached, yet his heart felt clean, cleaner than ledger books or loan parchments. Visenya Targaryen's second name day arrived with bright banners and poison. The toddler collapsed during a courtyard puppet show, lips turning blue. Maester Pycelle swore a ruptured grape lodged in her throat. Rhaella screamed denial. Varys brought Robert hushed rumors, a lacewing blossom tincture, rare and swift, found an empty cup still damp. The cup belonged to a squire of House Oakheart, new arrived from Old Town. Under questioning, he insisted ignorance. Tywin Lannister petitioned that the boy be tried by combat. Sir Gregor Clegane offered as champion. Robert refused. The truth will not be coaxed by blood sport. He had the boy confined, but 2 nights later the squire was discovered, hanged in his cell, sheet twisted into rope. Guards swore no intruder passed. Visenya survived, though fevers racked her tiny frame. Rhaella haunted the sick room, crooning lullabies until her voice cracked. Robert posted 4 of his personal guard at the door, and forbade anyone entry without Ned's seal. The realm whispered that the Lord Protector safeguarded the dragon child as fiercely as his own wolf queen. Some saw mercy, others saw cunning. The whispers thickened, sticky as cobwebs. When spring bled into summer, the Iron Bank dispatched envoys in purple mantles, curious why Robert borrowed from Tyrosh and not Bravos. Robert shrugged. Your rates were steeper than a Dornish sand dune. The envoy blinked. We have no sand. Robert only smiled. Still, the meeting sowed seeds. Bravos did not like being bypassed. Tyrosh did not like Braavosi scowls, and King's Landing feared both. Jon Arryn navigated the currents, promising interest payments paired with shipping licenses. That appeased the Braavosi, angered the Tyroshi, and amused Robert, who quipped, "If both sides complain, a middle holds." In the dog days of that first Queen's year, a comet streaked the sky, red as forge iron. Superstitious murmurs erupted. Some claimed it heralded the return of dragons, others that it was Robert's hammer blazing across night to warn foes. Arya, perched on Robert's shoulders atop the battlements, simply reached up and squealed, as she had at Sunmotes on her coronation day. Robert chuckled. She thinks it a kite set loose. Ned stood beside them, arms folded. Let her think. Grown men will supply dread enough. Below, Flea-Bottom's children danced, pointing at the fiery tail. Somewhere a Septon shouted repentance, and 5 drunk Sellswords started a fistfight over whether the streak portended plague or plenty. The comet burned on, heedless. 5 harvests worth of grain arrived by barge from the Reach. Highgarden's new young rose, Mace Tyrell's first grandchild, pledged loyalty in return for tourney rights. Robert planned a grand melee to celebrate the realm's budding peace. Stannis rolled eyes. Oberyn polished spearheads. Tywin hinted that jousts favored the Reachman's coffers. Robert waved them silent and ordered lists erected on the Field of the Wolf, new name for the tract outside Dragon Gate. Knights gathered from dusk till dawn, bright surcoats billowing. Arya, now 3 and stubborn as ironweed, insisted on sitting atop the steward's table for best view at Dio. Robert set her between himself and Ned, presenting a united wall of tall shoulders lest she topple. The final tilt paired Renly Baratheon, gangly but fearless, against Sir Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers, riding in silvered plate etched with roses. Loras unseated Renly in 2 passes, but the young Baratheon sprawled laughing in the dust, accepted a hand up, and whispered something that brought bloom to Loras' cheeks. Robert watched, eyebrows arching, and clapped loudest at their camaraderie. That night Robert hosted yet another feast. Laughter flowed freer than wine. Even Stannis smiled, briefly, when Renly recounted his fall with self-mocking flourish. Arya clapped small hands and demanded a wooden sword of her own come morning. Ned agreed, specifying blunted edges. Robert sent for the Mastergat harms before dessert. Visenya, still frail from the poisoning, sat on Rhaella's lap watching from sidelines. When Arya wobbled past brandishing her new sword toward Renly, Visenya giggled, a delicate sound like pebbles in a brook. Robert noticed and knelt to their level. When you are strong, he told Visenya gently, you may swing a sword too. Rhaella's eyes shimmered. She will be strong, she whispered. Fire tempers, they say. Robert nodded. So does ice. And the realm is forged of both. Years ripened. The realm's memory of war dulled. Those scars lingered in stone and soul-light. Queen Arya learned her letters beneath Septim Arya's stern gaze, though often she exchanged quill for training baton, dueling stable boys until they yielded more to her grin than her strokes. Visenya grew slower but wiser, humming snatches of Valyrian verse that none taught her, and feeding crumbs to ravens in the rookery. Robert presided over tribunals, stamping wax seals onto rulings he had argued through half the night. He rode patrols along the King's Road, slept beneath pines, and drank with small folk who spoke of the Wolf Queen as if she were a tall tale unfolding before their eyes. He kept Tywin close yet never fully inside the walls, relied on Stannis' precision, Oberyn's wit, Jon Arryn's patient counsel, and late evenings he walked alone through Maegor's Holdfast, touching cold blackened stones where wildfire once licked, reminding himself what fear had built and what courage might yet build anew. Some nights he paused outside the nursery shared by Arya and Visenya. Candlelight danced under the door. Through the crack he would see them curled like twin pups. One dark wolf, one pale dragon, breathing in tandem. Rhaella usually dozed in a chair nearby, silver hair unbound, face soft in slumber. Robert never entered. He stood, a large shadow bearing steel on hip and questions on brow, and listened until the quiet convinced him the world could rest a few hours more. One dawn he found Ned atop the highest tower, gazing north. Fog blurred the far plains. Gulls wheeled like errant thoughts. Ned spoke without turning. "Winter will come again, Robert. When it does, this piece will feel thin as old parchment." "Enter." "Oh." Robert folded arms. "Then we shall write on new parchment." Ned's sigh misted in the early chill. "We will need more than ink." Robert clapped a hand on his friend's shoulder. "We have a stubborn queen, a clever dragon, and a hammer yet unbroken. Ink enough for any saga." Far below, in castle yards, steel rang. Arya sparring with Renly under Sir Barristan's watchful eye. Her laughter rose like dawn-light piercing fog. Robert nodded toward it. "Hear that, Ned? That is ink. The oldest kind. Blood racing through young veins, eager for tales." Lars said saga. Ned allowed a ghost-thin smile. "May the tale be long then." Robert watched the children until the sun crowned the horizon, gilding the red keep in molten brilliance. He felt the years stretched before them, uncertain, perilous, shining. 5 hours? 5 decades. Time mattered less than motion. So long as the hammer kept swinging, the wolf kept howling, and dragons perched in watchful peace, the forging would continue. He breathed the morning, tasting salt and promise, and descended to meet the day's labors. Another step on a road of stories meant to last beyond their living. The summer that Arya Stark turned 4 unfurled like a tapestry of hot gold stitched with persistent breezes off the Blackwater. From the parapets of the Red Keep one could smell tar and blooming sage in equal measure, and every so often the spicy tang of Dornish oranges perfumed the harbor. Oberyn's newest gesture of friendship, though more than one maester guessed he meant the fragrance to nudge Tywin's sensibilities as much as Robert's palate. Within the keep, the air rang daily to the cadence of training swords meeting shields. Arya demanded half-hour sparring sessions each dawn, insisting the sun rose sluggishly because it feared her blade. Sir Barristan Selmy obliged with infinite patience. When he was called to council duties, Sir Roderick stepped in, mustaches bristling each time the girl's wooden sword found a gap in his guard. She grew fast, muscled like a lynx, her legs forever bruised, but her grin all the brighter for each discoloration. Visenya Targaryen, frailer, thoughtful, and possessed of eyes too old for her toddler frame, often perched upon a nearby balustrade watching the bouts. She never laughed at Arya's triumphant shrieks. Rather, she cocked her head as though studying choreography in a foreign tongue, and afterward might repeat a move with uncanny precision, despite her slight wrists. Rhaella insisted such mimicry portended nothing mystical, merely quick learning, she told Pycelle. But rumors multiplied nonetheless. Some whispered the dragon-blooded girl could see motions before they happened, others that she heard echoes of distant swords in her dreams. Robert, overhearing, snorted, and declared if foresight sharpened reflexes, perhaps the child should join Arya in drills. Rhaella smiled politely but declined. "Her humors are tempered by quiet," she said. "Let her learn stillness before steel." Robert never pressed. He had grown accustomed to Rhaella's quiet authority, the way she repelled intrusion as a flame repels moths. Soft flicker at first glance, lethal burn at contact. She and Catelyn Tully Stark formed an unlikely friendship rooted in motherhood. Evenings found them in the Maiden Vault, Rhaella plaiting Catelyn's hair while exchanging tales of remote gods' woods and dragon lodges, long collapsed in the haunted hills east of King's Landing. Their children scampered around their skirts, Arya and Visenya, with Robb Stark visiting for a season, and toddler Sansa weaving in and out like small satellites. When court envoys arrived at dusk, they often discovered the realm's 2 most powerful women humming lullabies together, cups of river-run tea cooling at their elbows. The sight disarmed even the flint-hearted. More than one reached night, hardened by Mace Tyrell's boar hunts, grew faint-voiced before those twin thrones of maternal serenity. Far less serene were the numbers on Jon Arryn's ledgers. Autumn harvests from the Reach had been ample. Yet Casterly Rock's favorable tariffs were due to expire. Tywin hinted he expected renewal, else gold flow only where it earned respect. Jon spent dawns quill-drunk and red-eyed. Ned stood at his shoulder, offering newly minted Northern Iron tokens to offset Lannister coin. The tokens, engraved with direwolf on one face, stag on the other, quickly found favor among merchants tired of fluctuating crown rates. Tywin reacted by flooding the market with clipped lions of older mintage, undermining the token's exchange value. The council devolved into weekly skirmishes of math and pride. Robert preferred the yard. High atop the gatehouse he built a hammer range. Long poles set upright in sand, each capped by steel helms, scavenged from Eris's disbanded gold cloaks. At twilight he hurled blunted warhammers down the ramp, aiming for each helm. Every impact rang like distant thunder, scattering pigeons from guttered niches. Arya watched from the wall walk, eyes wide. On her 5th name day, Robert carved her a child-sized maul from black oak, head tipped in dull iron. She nearly toppled under its weight, but pride held her upright. "Swing from the hips," Robert grinned, steadying her stance. "Let the hammer guide your shoulder, not the other way around. You're too small to wrestle iron." She nodded, teeth chewing her lip, and tried again. Maul arced poorly, thumped sand, and wrenched her arms. She refused to cry. After half a dozen more attempts, sweat beading her brow, she landed a glancing blow upon a helm. The clang echoed like temple bells. Servants along the curtain wall burst into applause they had not realized they were holding. Arya's grin could have split marble. Winter that year arrived late but fierce. Sleety gales knifed through alleys, and blackwater waves shattered against the aisles with such force entire crab shacks vanished overnight. Robert turned the great hall into a dormitory for displaced smallfolk. Pallets of straw lined beneath banners black and gold. Tywin frowned, calculating costs. Stannis nodded approval but quietly replaced the straw every fortnight, citing disease risk. Varys arranged minstrels each dusk to dull hunger pangs with song. Plague spared the city, but not the court. In mid-ice moon, Jon Arryn collapsed in council, breath rattling, hand clutching his chest. A hush like snowfall blanketed the hall. Robert heaved his old friend into his arms, shouting for Pycelle's drafts. Yet even as the maester's poppy-tinged brew slid between Jon's lips, his gaze sought Arya, standing small beside Catelyn. Jon whispered 3 words: "Guard the hinge." Then he died. The phrase haunted the keep. Some claimed hingy meant the Iron Throne itself, whose side hinges creaked daily. Others thought it a cipher for the Vale's bloody gate, pivot on which the realm's mountain stability turned. Stannis suggested Jon's mind had wandered roads of youth. Ned alone believed otherwise. The night after the funeral pyre, he descended into the crypts beneath the sept, and studied each iron-bound stone door, searching for clues to Jon's final counsel. Robert discovered him there, torch guttering in the stale draft. "Grief gnaws," Robert said, voice soft as hammered leather. "Do not let it hollow you." Ned closed the parchment he had been reading. Jon's earliest ledgers from their rebellion musterings. "He warned of a hinge," Ned murmured. "A joint between 2 forces. If one side splinters, the gate fails." "Damn him?" Robert leaned against a pillar carved with maiden's tears. "Jon balanced us. The realm must hinge on someone new. You want me to take his seat? Who else knows the realm's sinews? Stannis is iron, but iron bends only so far before it snaps. Tywin would fashion the hinge into a trap. Oberyn." Robert exhaled a wry laugh. "Oberyn would poison it if only to see what new shapes the smoke assumed." Ned's mouth thinned. "I swore to guide Arya, but from the hand's tower. Lord Chancellor is for men who thrive on parchment." "There, then thrive on it," Robert answered. "Do not let foxes mind the henhouse." The next morning, over Arya's bowl of morning oats, she jabbed raisins like enemy spies in porridge. Robert announced Ned Stark as Lord Chancellor while retaining him as Hand. 2 titles, 1 conscience. The council offered measured approval. Tywin's nod was parchment thin. That afternoon he requested private audience. Robert received him in the half-repaired throne room, scaffolding shadowing, rusted blades. The lion's cloak edged the steps in crimson tide. "My sympathies for Lord Arryn," Tywin began. Each word placed like a pawn, yet in times of uncertainty, concentration of power can hinder swift decisions. One man wearing 2 crowns of office may tread slower than 2 men walking abreast. Robert lounged against the dais rail, arms crossed. Ned's steps are long enough. Tywin's eyes glimmered cat green. Indeed, but House Lannister stands ready to shoulder burden. Should the North tire under its weight? Robert straightened. Does the Rock offer coin or counsel? Both, naturally. Casterly Rock can grant the crown a rolling credit of 50,000 dragons at 10% annual interest. In return, a position as Master of Coin would suffice. A lesser office than Hand, yet with sufficient reach to ensure currency remains stable. "No, sir." Robert barked a laugh. "Tywin Lannister applying for Master of Coin? 7 hells. The realm will think gold counts itself." "Gold always counts itself," Tywin replied, lashes half drooping. "The question is, who listens?" Robert sensed a trap yet could not fault the bait. Coins were dwindling faster than winter's sun. Tywin's offer dangled like a lifeline and a leash. He dismissed the lion curtly, promising deliberation. That night he shared the matter with Ned, Catelyn, and Rhaella in the Solar. Rhaella's lips pursed. Tywin carries hooks that snag long past final payment. Catelyn toyed with Arya's discarded training sword. Yet docks idle, smiths demand steel, and harvest wagons need escorts against sellswords grown bold again. Dry coffers breed more war than full ones. Ned listened, then spoke low. Let Tywin open the purse, but chain it. Establish a crown mint independent of his essays. Require audits by maesters sworn under penalty of clapped tongues. If Tywin seeks influence, let him sign covenants he cannot so easily unwrite. "Yuan Tor." Robert grinned. "Your quills are sharper than my hammer. My quills do not split skulls. They may yet." 2 weeks later, Tywin accepted the post of Master of Coin, under conditions that Crown Mints use Northern iron stamps, with monthly reports delivered to Ned and countersigned by Pycelle and the High Septon. Tywin sealed the parchments without outward ire, but small folk reported tremors in the Rock's minds when the news reached Lannisport. Some claimed the roars were literal, others spoke of shafts collapsing in anger. The same month, a raven arrived from Pike. Balon Greyjoy had launched reaving parties along the Shield Islands, torching 3 fishing villages. Robert slammed the scroll upon the map table. "Fetch Lord Balon," he thundered. "Chain him in his halls if need be." Stannis volunteered the royal fleet, still half-constructed, to sail within a moon's turn. Yet Tywin counseled patience. Let loans stabilize before hemorrhaging coin on war galleys. Oberyn suggested bribing Balon with Dornish wine. His men will drink, fall, and drown themselves without a sword lifted. Robert nearly smiled, then ordered a middle path. Dispatch ravens threatening full royal reprisal, while quietly tasking Stannis with readying 10 longships of Stormlanders. Balon's reply arrived bound in a dried kraken's tentacle. A curt dare. The kraken banner, it read, will not kneel to pups displaced from wombs to thrones. Burn me if you can catch me. Robert rolled the tentacle across the council table toward Arya, now perched on Ned's lap for the session. She examined it, nose wrinkling with revulsion and intrigue alike. "Shall I burn him?" Robert asked her, half jest. Arya swung her wooden sword down upon the curled appendage. "Cut first, burn after." Laughter rippled. Even Tywin's mouth curved the faintest degree. But Robert's eyes simmered. "So shall it be," he muttered. Preparations for a punitive strike slowed when the stepstones erupted in conflict. A Sell-Sail prince declared himself pirate king, seizing passing merchantmen. Braavosi envoys pleaded for intervention. Robert fumed at the notion of another front but recognized the stakes. If shipping lanes choked, the realm's fragile economy would suffocate. Stannis again offered sail. Tywin again urged restraint. Varys hinted that clandestine whisper networks might sow discord cheaply. Ned proposed a bold compromise. Send Visenya Targaryen as ward to the Sea Lord of Braavos, cementing goodwill while removing a potential dynastic chess piece from Westeros. Rhaella listened, silent salt on her lashes. Eventually, she nodded. If the dragon cannot fly to save her life, let her sail to shape her fate. The council held at its breath. Robert squeezed Rhaella's hand across the table. She sails with my blessing, he said, hammer-deep voice brittle around the edges. When news spread, small folk cheered. Braavos meant silk and spice would flow unmolested, but others whispered Lord Protector had exiled the last dragon to foreign waters. Rhaella and Visenya departed one mist-pink dawn aboard a sleek galley painted midnight blue. Arya pressed her nose to the pier rail, waving until the sails were pale specks. She did not speak for the rest of the day. Even her wooden sword lay forgotten by her bedside. Robert found her there at dusk, watching torch shadows crawl across ceiling beams. He sat on the edge of her pallet. All journeys end, he said. Some end sooner so the next may begin. Arya hugged her knees. Will she return? Ships sail both ways. He rumpled her hair. But wolves run forward. Tomorrow Sir Barristan will teach you the sidestep feint. You will need nimble legs for Balin's Krekens. Her stare flickered. Am I going to war? Not yet. But a queen must know why men fight in her name. Then wide. I fight in mine, she mumbled. Robert laughed, softly. Even better. The next weeks gifted no respite. Lannisport's mint reported a shortfall. Someone smuggled dwarf gold counterfeit dragons into city markets. Tywin ordered city gates sealed, merchants searched, offenders hanged. Stannis objected to summary executions. Tywin retorted that clipped coins kill kingdoms. Ned mediated by mandating trial review by crown magistrates. Robert merely growled that if Tywin's neck stretched another inch while nodding, he'd soon match a giraffe. Through it all, Arya trained, studied, and wandered. Septa Arya despaired of needlework lessons. The girl preferred mapping secret tunnels Varys pointed out on dusty blueprints. One afternoon she wriggled behind a loose stone in the throne room dais, emerging in Tywin's solar mid-audience. Guards drew steel. Tywin's eyebrow climbed a perilous slope. Arya dusted cobwebs from her breeches and declared, "Secret rat roads line your walls, Lord Lion. Best plug holes lest cheese goes missing." Then she bowed and left. That evening, Tywin requested additional funds for castle repair. Robert nearly choked on Dornish red. Spring of the Queen's 6th year brought the Iron Fleet east of Fair Isle, where Stannis waited with Royal Dramon's newly christened Oath and Thunder. The encounter was brief, brutal, and decisive. Stormlander catapults flung barrels of boiling pitch that shattered Kraken decks. Balin's flagship, Silence, took 2 direct hits, mast shearing off before a boarding party led by Sir Davos Seaworth ignited her stores. Balin escaped on a skiff, roaring oaths to drown the realm in salt. Stannis did not pursue. Robert's orders were to break, not occupy. The fleet returned to Blackwater amidst jubilant bells. Arya met Davos on the quay, eyes like polished steel. He knelt, offering her a barnacle-encrusted dagger recovered from Silence. For the Queen, a token of the sea's temper. She weighed it, nodded solemn thanks, and later that night traced the blade along candlelight, mesmerized by how flame clung to salt-rimmed steel. Ned confiscated it until Maester Colin dulled the edge. Arya complained half the night, then shrugged and carved practice strokes in air, pretending each wobble of the candle's flame was a Kraken tentacle severed anew. Ravens from Braavos arrived with glad tidings. Visenya thrived among the Titan's towers, learning High Valyrian dialects unheard since the Freehold. The Sea Lord praised her poise and clarity. Rhaella's letters radiated maternal pride, though each ended with unspoken ache. Ink strokes thinning, as though distance siphoned her blood. Robert kept the letters in an iron box beside his bed. On Arya's 7th name day, Robert summoned masons to relocate the Iron Throne from the Great Hall under renovation to a smaller audience chamber where scaffolds did not obscure windows. Workers wrangled chains, each link thick as a rider's arm. Arya slipped among them, studying the jagged seat. She ran gloved fingers along a half-melted arak, once wielded by a Cohoric sellsword in service to Maegor, its edge still capable of drawing blood. "Ugly," she declared. Robert, supervising, grinned. "Hardly the cushioned seat of legends. Why not melt it down? Forge real swords for real knights." "Because," Robert said, "symbols glue men sterner than iron. Melt the symbol and you melt half their vows." Arya considered. "Will I sit it?" "When you can command more than wood and dull iron," he answered. "When your words wield weight heavier than your hammer sword." She gazed at the throne again, brow furrowed. That night, she dreamed of forging. Great tongues of fire swallowing twisted metal, reshaping it into something both blade and crown. She woke before dawn, heart thundering like storm drums. Summer matured into swelter. Floran envoys demanded dowry talks for some future marriage between Arya and one of their line. Robert sent them off with casks of mead. "For cooling hot heads," he said, and no promises. Tywin quietly advanced a similar notion, involving his youngest son. Catelyn bristled. Ned flatly refused. Robert deflected with jest. Best not promise the queen until she bests her suitors at arms. The Stepstone's flare reignited when the Pirate King captured a Braavosi treasure galleon, carrying a Myrish lens grinder's fortune in finely wrought crystal. Braavos invoked Visenya's wardship, requesting Westerosi enforcement. Robert grudgingly prepared a second expedition. Yet Arya, overhearing strategy talk, slipped parchment into Robert's study. A childish map of river deltas and tide flows she'd copied from Varys charts. She included a doodle of a kraken snared in a net. Robert stared at the drawing. Something sparked. He summoned Sir Davos, known once as the Onion Knight for smuggling, and asked how currents near the Stepstones might favor nets of chain weighted with stone. Davos' grin widened. 3 months later, a flotilla of pirates found themselves trapped between sudden shallows and chain drags pulled by hidden Dromons. Caught immobile, they surrendered. The treasure galleon was reclaimed, its hold intact. Braavos sent a gilded astrolabe to Queen Arya, a marvel of gearwork that whirred constellations under lamplight. She spent hours turning its brass rings, asking maesters endless questions about distant worlds. By then, Arya read competently, though she despised copywork. She preferred cipher puzzles. Varys slipped her. Wheels of letters she cracked by moonlight. Ned noticed her scribbling and worried about spymaster influence. Robert argued that riddles sharpened wits. They compromised. Arya could solve ciphers, but must present decoded texts to Ned each dawn for discussion. Over time, father and daughter forged a secret dawn ritual. Steaming oat porridge, parchment keys, sunrise dripping through leaded panes. Visenya returned the following spring, taller, pale as sea foam, speaking Braavosi idioms that delighted Arya. Their reunion unfurled like two rivers meeting, Arya's rowdy current swirling around Visenya's steady drift. They trained together, one sparring with wooden blade, the other practicing measured dance-like footwork gleaned from Braavosi water dancers. Catelyn watched, astonished how each supplemented the other's gaps. Arya lending raw ferocity, Visenya lending precision, until their wooden swords sang harmonies. Rhaella's health, however, withered. Long voyages had wearied her, coughs clung to ribs. Pycelle prescribed rest, warmed milk with honey. Rhaella demurred politely, sipping only enough to avoid offense. She spent afternoons in the Godswood, transplanted weirwood sapling from Winterfell, gift from Ned, whispering prayers to old gods and seven alike. One dusk Arya found her there, pale cheek pressed against bone-white bark. Her whisper trailed into silence. The funeral pyre rose beside Blackwater's shore. Cedar logs stacked in a tiered pyramid, petals scattered by Dornish handmaidens. Robert carried Visenya, tears streaking the girl's face though she uttered no sound. Arya gripped Ned's hand, knuckles white. When the fire took, sparks spiraled skyward, and some swore the smoke shaped itself into wings one last time. Tywin observed in austere silence. Oberyn tossed a scarlet rose into the flames. Rhaella's passing shifted unseen plates beneath court. Targaryen loyalists lost their surviving queen. Visenya, though beloved, was a child ward. Whispers escalated. Certain storm lords wondered aloud if, bereft of dragon matriarch, Robert might seize full kingship and marry some fertile house to tighten his line. Robert dismissed such talk with greater vigor than before, but the rumors grew legs. Meanwhile, Tywin quietly amassed support among lesser lords disenchanted by northern influence. They dined in his solar, drank Arbor gold, and left with promises of lowered taxes under more balanced regency. Ned monitored but did not yet move. Pulling a weed too early, he said to Robert, left roots to regrow stronger. The hinge creaked. One shadow-heavy morning Varys entered the council chambers bearing a tattered raven. Message sigil. Kraken over crossed tridents. Balon Greyjoy had declared the Iron Islands sovereign, urging Westerosi coasts to rise. He crowned himself Black King and sent envoys to Terrash for Sell-Sail aid. Robert slammed the table hard enough to scuttle goblets. Stannis will sail again, he roared. Tywin folded fingers. Your treasury's walls echo, my lord. Another war requires coin. Cut off his trade, Stannis urged. Blockade will starve his warships. Ned shook his head. Blockades take months, Balon raids swift. Visenya, standing near the chamber's pillars, allowed at council per Robert's insistence, spoke soft. Strike at Pike while his fleets sail east. All eyes turned. She flushed but did not shrink. Empty fortress, empty heart. A kraken without a rock floats with the tide. Robert's brows rose. Out of babes' mouths. He looked to Stannis. Can you lend troops before Kraken's return? Stannis' jaw rigid. If winds favor. Robert clasped Visenya's shoulder. Then we set sail. Arya stormed in during preparations, demanding to accompany the fleet. Robert refused. She argued fury loud, but he remained iron. He appointed her regent of the keep in his absence, overseer of kitchens, stables, scribes. She protested this was chores, not crowns. But Ned whispered that ruling hearths taught ruling hearts. She accepted, grudging. The fleet launched under thunderclouds. Arya marched the halls, issuing blistering orders to grooms, cooks, scribes. Tywin watched from balconies, gold cloak shimmering like a waiting coin. He sent messages to the Vale, to Highgarden, to Sunspear. Ravens clogged the rookery. In Stannis' absence, a cargo ship from Pentos arrived bearing casks of Mirish wine gifted to Tywin. During offloading, dockhands fell ill. Blue lips, short breath. Pycelle concluded the wine bore pale mare spores. Tywin claimed ignorance, ordered barrels burned, but rumor painted him poisoner. Small folk rioted outside his manse. 2 lions killed before gold cloaks restored order. Tywin withdrew inside, hosting private councils with discontent lords. Arya stood before the keep's main gate as smoke rose from the riotous ruins. She watched healers tend wounded, her small fist gripping dagger hilt. Catelyn placed a calming hand on her shoulder. Storms gather, she murmured. Arya's eyes hardened. Then we plant trees to break wind. Catelyn blinked at unexpected wordplay. Then she smiled thinly. Yes, we plant. She summoned carpenters, masons, and beggars alike to rebuild burned market stalls, promising coin from crown chests. When Chamberlain protested coin shortage, Arya produced a decree signed by herself as acting protector. Mint more direwolf stag tokens from salvage iron until fleet's return. Ned, discovering it after the fact, rubbed temples in exasperation, yet grudgingly stamped approval. Better inflated iron than starving streets bleeding loyalty to Tywin's coffers. Weeks later, Stannis' Raven arrived. Pike fallen in dawn assault. Balon captured. Robert remained on island to enforce surrender oaths. Victory, but cost high. Wave-lashed cliffs claimed 20 ships. Arya read letter thrice, relief warring with worry. That night, Varys appeared behind a curtain in her study. My queen, he purred. Sailors whisper Tywin may press the council to elect a new protector before Lord Robert returns. Should arrows fly, I beg you keep to inner chambers. Arya set her jaw. Chambers are cages. Varys spread empty hands. Even songbirds retreat to cages when hawks circle. She dismissed him but doubled her guard. She slept with dagger beneath pillow, dreamt of iron hinges squealing under strain. When Robert sailed back into Blackwater, Balon manacled to mast, bells erupted like caged thunder. Tywin presented himself at quay, parchments in hand, citing emergency measures passed during Robert's absence. Additional taxes to cover riot damage and a decree granting Master of Coin authority over garrison pay. Robert scanned, veins throbbing. My daughter minted coins of iron and fed the city without your taxes, he barked, tearing the parchments. The garrison never missed coin. Tywin's lips barely twitched. The realm expects stability, my lord. I provided. You provided chains to bind my hammer. Robert's glare could scorch granite. Enough. You will remain master of coin, but garrison purse returns to the hand. Tywin bowed, unparalleled in grace, yet his eyes burned molten. That eve Robert convened closed council. Only Ned, Stannis, Catelyn, Arya, Visenya. He laid a new map across oak. Westeros pierced by colored pins representing loyalties. The clustering around Lannisport glowed like infection. The lion's mane grows, Robert said. We cut before it strangles. Ned exhaled. War against the Rock tears the realm. War perhaps unseen, Robert replied. He looked to Arya. You opened mint without permit. Bold, dangerous. Yet you saw need, acted. Realm needs more than gold. It needs hearts. He pointed at Visenya. You struck Pike with one sentence. The realm needs minds. He thumped his chest. I am hammer. But a hammer alone builds no palace. Together we forge hinge anew. One Tywin cannot unseat. Dong. He unveiled a charter. Council seats expanded, each sworn to queen, not protector. Merchants Guild, Faith, City Watch, even guildmasters. Representation diluted any single lord's sway. Arya signed in cramped script. Visenya signed with elegant loop learned in Bravos. Ned etched name below. Stannis, though reluctant at sharing power, saw merit, set signature. Final step required Tywin. Robert summoned him next dawn. Charter unrolled. Tywin read. A fisherman and a mason vote, equal to a lord. In this hall, yes, Robert answered. Iron hinges need many rivets. Tywin's gaze cut like whetted steel. You will regret rust. Perhaps, but rusted hinges replaced, not crowned. Tywin signed, ink dark as vengeance. Years marched. Arya at 9 won her first tourney, unseating a squire thrice her weight in the lists of Maidenpool, with blunted lance under helmet cheek guards thick as horseshoes. Visenya compiled a treatise on freehold architecture that baffled maesters twice her age. Robert aged into thicker girth, still deadly swing but laughter deeper, slower. Ned's hair silvered at the temples. Catelyn mothered half the keep. Stannis commanded fleets patrolling from Arbor to Skagos. The lion watched, biding. But each claw raised met rivets newly set, and the hinge held. Creaking under storms, yes, yet refusing to splinter. On the night, Arya saw her 10th winter's first snowflake float across a brazier's glow. She lifted her wooden, and iron-weighted, hammer toward the palace's highest window. She imagined the hinge below, supporting doors wide enough to shelter every soul from winter's howl. The hammer felt light, yet behind it pressed Robert's callous teaching, Visenya's still caution. Ned's quills, Catelyn's patience, Stannis' storms, even Tywin's relentless grind. Beneath the window, the iron throne glimmered, still ugly, still unmelted. But Arya no longer despised it. She understood symbols sometimes bore scars to remind blades why they remained sheathed. She whispered to the snowflake melting on her hand. Not yet, but soon. She let it dissolve and turned back to the torchlit corridor, to her sister, to her guardian, to her realm hammered slowly into shape by hearts that refused to rust. Ika. The dawn that ushers Arya's 11th year bleeds pale lilac across Blackwater Bay, scattering silver light over the half-mended scars of war and riot that checker King's Landing. From the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark watches gulls wheel above the docks, their cries lost under the rhythmic thrum of the forges coming to life in the streets below. Snow has fallen twice this winter, a sparkling dust hardly worth the name, but the air hints at deeper frosts to come. And Ned tastes the promise of true winter the way a woodsman scents approaching storm under spruce boughs. Behind him the chamber door creaks, admitting the small clatter of hardened boots and the faint scent of oiled leather. Arya half slips, half stalks into the study, cheeks flushed, dark hair escaping the knot Catelyn tied that morning. In her gloved grip, she carries the new sword forged from old rake iron and castle steel. Needle's heavier cousin, narrow yet lethal. Ned lifts a brow. She squares her shoulders and plants the tip against the mapboard dented with years of pins. Ser Barristan says my stance drifts, she reports, voice still pitched between child and young woman. He thinks ice in the yard stone slicks my heel. Does it? Ned asks. She shakes her head. My mind drifts. The blade follows. Her eyes flick to the lattice window and the restless bay beyond. Storms stir somewhere. Ned steps to the hearth, stirs the coals, then lays 2 more pine logs across the embers. There is always a storm stirring. The lesson is to keep your feet when it breaks. He motions her closer. Show me your guard. She sets feet shoulder wide, knees bent, sword angled to intercept an invisible thrust. For 3 heartbeats she is still. Then her front knee wobbles. Weight shifts. Balance teeters. She corrects but too late. Ned lays 2 fingers against her pommel, and the blade dips. Mind, he says. Arya grits teeth. Mind. Together they reset. Again. Again. Until sweat beads her brow and pine burns to crackling cinders. When the door opens once more, it is Jon Arryn's successor, Maester Colvin, who shuffles in with a tray of steaming oatcakes, honey, and the thin manchego Visenya favors. The Maester blinks at the pair, bemused, then wisely retreats to set the tray beside the study desk. Arya sags onto a cushioned bench. Ned pours hot cider, hands her the cup. Your mind drifts to the harbor, he says. Why? She blows at the steam. Visenya dreams of sails, says the Sea Lord of Braavos plans to visit. Ships from the east could bring half the world in their holds. But they can bring swords too. Ned nods. We will plan for both. He pauses, weighing his next words. Today you sit the morning court in Robert's stead. Hear the merchants' petitions. We'll stand at your back, but the judgments are yours. Her eyes widen, wolf-gray pool suddenly deeper. Alone? Never alone, but your voice must lead. She swallows, then lifts the cup as if in toast to an unseen horizon. I won't drift. The throne room is not the vast, echoing nave of Maegor's Holdfast. That hall remains scaffolded, awaiting the mason's final triumph over rust and time. Instead, Arya holds court in the old Dragon's Gallery, a long chamber paneled in dark pine, whose windows cast mottled sea glass light across tapestries depicting the conquest. The Iron Throne itself looms farther back, roped off in respectful distance, its silhouette a jagged admonition. The high-backed oaken chair placed for Arya sits upon a low dais beside a standing banner of direwolf and stag entwined. She wears plain black leggings, knee-high riding boots, and a doublet of deep green velvet. Catelyn's nod to the Riverlands, laced with bronze thread cunningly embroidered in twisting vines. Over one shoulder, she slings a fur-lined mantle, dyed the muted crimson of old weirwood leaves. No crown rests upon her brow. Instead, her dark hair is braided tight and bound with a strip of wolf-gray ribbon. The first petitioner is a tall woman in a rough-spun cape, the salt-stiff hem betraying nights slept on hull planks. Captain Morell of the Cinnamon Wind, newly arrived from the Summer Isles. She bows low, speaks accented Westerosi, and presents a sealed box of carmine wood. Within lies a feather-slender dagger of iridescent shell, tortoise and obsidian, fused with art only Summer Islanders possess. To the Wolf Queen, a gift in honor of a harbor, kept open to all who ply honest trade. Arya accepts, turning the blade so shifting light ripples along the edge. "Honest trade is a harbor's spine," she says, echoing phrasing Ned drilled into her days prior. "What boon do you seek?" "Dock dues cut in half for isle ships bringing spice unseen upon these shores. We pledge an annual fleet of 6. Halved dues for 6. Spice guaranteed," Arya murmurs. She glances at Ned, who stands unspeaking to her right. His face is stone, counsel silent unless asked. She inhales, tastes the weight of decision. The realm needs fresh coin, yet cannot tax itself into famine. She turns to Maester Colvin. "What tariff upon Dornish wines presently stands?" Colvin references parchment. 3 parts in 10, my lady. "Reduce Summer Isle spice to 2 parts in 10, Arya declares. "But on condition. Each arriving ship delivers tithe to city granaries equal to its crew's ration for a fortnight. Food before fragrance." She meets Captain Morell's eyes. "Do you accept?" The captain beams. "The Isles honor wisdom." She signs parchment. Scribes flourish quills. The cinnamon dagger returns to its red cradle atop treasurer's table. Petitioners flow. A mason's guild seeking slate rights in Crownland's hills. Septa de Lone urging funds for orphan refuges. 2 rival smiths arguing over whose steel rings stronger. Arya listens, questions, rules. Sometimes wrong, sometimes wise, but always swift. By sun-high she has settled 12 disputes, distributed grain to a burned Riverlands hamlet, and fined a Irish glassmonger for selling warped lenses to maesters. In the gallery's rear, Tywin Lannister stands beneath a traceried window, the lion rampant brooch at his cloak glinting in pale sun. He observes every edict with unreadable eyes, making no move to interject. Yet when the final merchant bows out, he steps forward, the hush that greets him sharp as drawn steel. "Your Grace," he begins, voice smooth. "The realm can applaud your judgment, yet coin flows thinner than water. Tariffs reduced must find balancing silver elsewhere." He lifts a folded parchment. "I propose redirecting fealty tithes from lesser Crownlands houses, whose harvests run surplus, to offset this shortfall." Arya folds her arms. "Surplus 1 year drains reserve the next. Why bleed them?" "Because," Tywin says, accenting each syllable like hammer strikes on gold, "house coffers are not temple relics. Stagnant silver breeds rust of the spirit." She tilts her head. "Then compel each surplus house to purchase bricks for the orphan refuge. Silver becomes stone, which becomes shelter." Tywin's eyebrow arches a hair. Silence swells. Then Ned murmurs, "A levy of materials rather than coin. Practical." Tywin inclines his head a fraction. "Acknowledgement or concession? Who might guess?" "As the Queen commands." He turns, cloak whispering, and strides away like a cat abandoning an unworthy mouse. Behind his retreat, Visenya glides from shadow, eyes tracking Tywin until the door closes. "He plots," she whispers. "Plotting is breathing to lions," Arya answers. She inhales, exhales, releases her shoulders. "And to wolves. Come, sparring before midday meal." "Yes." Visenya nods. The sisters exit, leaving scribes blinking at empty dais. The training yard echoes with rhythmic grunt and clack. Arya and Visenya circle each other, wooden blades a blur. Visenya's water dance steps slide over frost-slick flagstones, never quite pressing weight. Arya advances with hammering thrusts, raw power harnessed by newfound balance. Around them, Sir Barristan, Sir Davos, and the Master-at-Arms Kale River's watch, wagering copper on each point. Visenya feints left, spins, stabs. Arya parries, counters, lunges. Their blades kiss. Visenya's slip under Arya's guard draws mock blood. Cheers. Next bout begins. Sweat steams off brows, though air bites with winter chill. Kale Rivers mutters to Barristan. They fight like forge fire and moon water. Gods help any soul caught between. Barristan nods, pride soft in cragged gaze. After 4 rounds they call truce. collapsing by a barrel of rainwater. Arya tips, ladle to Visenya first. They gulp, laugh, lean back against cold stone. Sea Lord's fleet comes in 2 moons, Visenya says. He sails Titan's daughter. 3 decks, scarlet sails. And Tywin's temper will flare scarlet to match. Arya smirks. Let him simmer. Visenya's smile fades. Dreams turned uneasy last night. I saw a wheel of iron split along one spoke. Its shards pierced the sea. Arya frowns. Prophecy. Visenya shrugs. Just a dream. Tell Maester Colvin, Arya urges. Or Ned. You know Robert distrusts omens, but that doesn't dull them. Perhaps. Visenya whispers. Perhaps not. They sit in silence. The clang of other recruits chasing across the yard. On the 12th day of the new moon turn, a raven from Stannis arrives with black-wing urgency. Pirates have regrouped under an Irish corsair called the Green Falcon. They harry Spice Channel caravels, slipping between royal ships like knives through silk. Stannis' letter is spare. Need 3 more galleys, gold for rowers' pay, and permission to negotiate temporary alliance with Taroshi corsairs. Robert reads at breakfast. Snorts. Scribbles approval. He wonders whether steel alone can cauterize a world cut by 1,000 hidden blades. Later that afternoon, Robert meets Ned and Catelyn atop Tower Crown walkway to inspect new ballista placements along the curtain wall. He spends more time listening to Arya's court day than to the engineer's explanations, guffawing when Ned recounts the brick levy command. Clever cub, Robert rumbles. Build walls of charity with stones from pride. Mayhaps I should crown her tomorrow. Catelyn's lips quirk. Let her learn sums first. Robert leans against crenellations, surveying the city. She learns faster than wolves age. Soon enough the crown will sit where it belongs. He is silent then, a rare hush. Ned studies him. The lines around Robert's eyes cut deeper each season. His shoulders bear weight heavier than chainmail. Yet hope glows there too, fierce and perhaps foolish. A distant horn blares from the King's Gate. Riders thunder through snow-slushed streets, crimson cloaks flying out. Lannister men. Robert's knuckles whiten around the stone wall. Moments later the hall doors fling open. Tywin Lannister arrives with Sir Cavan and a half-dozen bannermen. 2 men bear a trunk bound in gilt ironwood. Tywin steps forward, bowed just enough to acknowledge Robert yet short of submission. My Lord Protector, he begins, voice like silk stretched over flint. The West brings tribute. He gestures. Aides unlock the chest, revealing piles of raven black ore, shot through with veins of shimmering gold. To rebuild the throne, Tywin says. Dragonglass and Orym, mined beneath Casterly's deepest tunnels. Melt the monstrous seat and forge a new, sleeker, stronger, fit for a young queen's stature. He glances at Arya, who has entered behind Ned, brow arched. Robert folds arms. A generous gift. An investment, my lord, Tywin corrects gently. Symbols matter, as you have taught us. Let the realm see not relics of conquest, but promise of unity. Ned's gaze flickers to Robert. Melting the throne. Arya's childhood dream. Temptation indeed. Yet suspicion coils in his gut. Arya steps forward. If the throne melts, whose forge shapes the steel? Tywin inclines his head. Master Gildrights from Lannisport, sworn to crown. And whose hammer delivers the final blow, she presses. Robert's chuckle rumbles. A hammer in my hand yet, girl, never fear. But Arya's eyes narrow. Even hammers slip if grips slick with gold. A hush. Tywin's expression remains serene. Visenya moves from shadow. Dragonglass breaks to shards if not tempered slow. She murmurs, gaze unfocused. Shards cut the forger first. Tywin's eyelid twitches, just that. Robert notices, frowns, closes the chest lid with a decisive snap. We will consider, he says. For now the throne stands. Tywin bows, withdraws. After footsteps fade, Arya turns to Ned. The hinge, she whispers. Ned nods, pulse drumming. That night Ned pores over ledgers, cross-referencing mine outputs. Dragonglass in such quantity seldom leaves Dragonstone's veins. Rarer still beneath the rock. Varys appears at Candle's gutter, unobtrusive as whisper. Information flows like cellar wine, he murmurs. The Lannister gift is genuine, yet not wholly theirs. Dragonstone's Night Watch harbor lost 3 barges last month, cargo unknown. Stolen, Ned breathes. Transferred, Varys smiles sadly, by men in crimson sorecoats. Ned clasps parchment. Proof. A ledger page, Varys says, sliding vellum forward. Acquired at some danger. It records payment from Lion to Dragonstone stevedores. For obsidian slag. Ned's jaw tightens. Enough to craft obsidian blades. Or daggers, Varys answers. Poisoned silent brother. Ned thinks of Visenya's dream. Iron wheel shattered. Shards piercing sea. He sees in his mind obsidian daggers slinking through palace halls, cutting throats before dawn bells ring. Does Robert know? He drinks hope this fortnight, Varys sighs. And hope thickens earwax. Ned pockets the ledger. Then re-waxes hammer. Snow falls heavy 3 nights later, muting the city under white hush. Branches bow, roofs sag, and in the godswood, the transplanted weirwood shivers crimson tears across pale bark. Robert hosts feast nonetheless. Wine warms blood, he claims, and banners sparkle with frost as torches flare. Tywin attends in polished crimson plate, a statement more than defense. He presents Robert with a golden torque set with garnets. To crown your vigilance, he says smoothly. Robert accepts yet does not don it. His eyes roam the hall where jesters tumble through snowflakes drifting from cracked clerestory windows. On dais, Arya sits straight-spined, small though the high-backed chair dwarfs her. At her right Visenya, at her left Ned. Catelyn oversees children's table, Sansa, Robb, little Bran visiting from Winterfell, and hushes squabbles over sugared figs. Mid-feast a page skitters in, soaked with melting snow, thrusts scroll toward Ned, whispering urgent. Ned reads, rises, bends to Arya's ear. Her eyes widen. She stands. Robert lifts brow. What stirs? Ned answers for her. Royal granaries by the Dragon Gate ablaze. Sparks caught dry straw. Robert slams goblet, wine geysering. Who sees to it? Gold cloaks, but winds strong. I go. Arya's voice cuts thin air, clear, cold. Tywin's lips curl faintly. The queen braves fire herself. Arya meets his gaze. Where bread burns, lungs burn. I'll not let small folk choke. Robert weighs but nods. Take a company of Stormlanders. I'll follow. She bows, strides away, Visenya trailing. Sir Davos, and 20 mailed guards clattering after. At the Dragon Gate, granary tongues of amber leap skyward, crackling like devils chewing boned hiwa. Snow melts to steam. Flames lick toward neighboring cottage roofs, where families huddle in terror. Arya arrives astride black gelding, cape whipping sparks. She dismounts, barking orders. Buckets from the well, form chains, there cross the lane. Her voice slices chaos. Men obey. Visenya stands at gate archway, eyes half-lidded, lips murmuring Braavosi lullaby. She steps forward, palms raised, as if feeling invisible threads of wind. Suddenly she points east. Break that wall, let wind cut the flames. Davos follows her gaze, realizes a cellar wall within the granary faces prevailing gusts, funneling heat deeper. Axes here, he roars. Stormlanders hack planks, opening vent. Air pressure shifts. Flames roll back on themselves, oxygen denied. In moments the inferno dwindles to stubborn tongues smothered by water. A cheer rises. Arya leans hands on thighs, chest heaving. Soot streaks her cheeks. Then a shrill cry. Rats, rats with knives. A baker staggers from smoke, blood seeping through torn jerkin. Behind, 2 figures in gray hoods dart alleyward, glint of obsidian in fists. Arya vaults a low fence, sprinting. Davos curses, follows with 2 guards. Snow muffles footfalls, alley twists between high storehouses. One hooded man slips, rights, throws obsidian blade. It whistles past Arya, nicks her sleeve. She gains, slashes wooden practice sword, heavy oak, but serviceable. The man stumbles. Second assailant darts left toward harbor wall. Davos and guards restrain first man. Wrench hood. A rough-shaven cell sail with lion brooch pinned discreetly inside cloak. Davos growls. Arya pursues the second. Heart pounding, breath plumbing. The alley ends at seawall drop. The hooded figure turns, cornered. Snowflakes drift. Arya raises sword. Yield, she says. The figure flips hood back. A woman, mid-20s, eyes pale amber. She smiles sadly. A wolf's bite early today. Who sent you? Arya demands. The woman tosses obsidian dagger over seawall. It splashes. No one you can cage. Arya steps closer. Tywin Lannister? Lions hunt deer, not wolves, the assassin replies, inscrutable. She edges back, heels near drop. Arya lunges, but the assassin whirls, dives over the wall. Arya reaches lip. Below, dark water churns and ice flows spin. No sign. Davos arrives, out of breath. Lost. Slipped. Arya gaze hardens. But trail isn't cold. She points to lion brooch on captured man hauled forth by guards. Question him before Tywin smells blood-washed. Interrogation room beneath Red Keep. Torchlit, reeks of damp and fear. Ned oversees. Robert stands sentinel, hammer across knee. The cell sail, name Yorick. Bleeds from lip but spine straight. He claims he acted under gold from a Taroshi fence. Denies Lannister tie. Ned produces lion brooch. Yorick shrugs. Found on street, lucky charm Tadia. Visenya sits in corner, silent. Arya leans close, whispering. Shards cut forger first. Yorick's eyes flicker. Recognition? Sweat beads. Robert's patience cracks. Speak or splatter, he growls. Hammer lifts. Yorick trembles, but shakes head. Arya senses a leash of fear deeper than death. She signals Robert to stay. Steps back, considers. Then she asks softly. What holds your tongue? Coin? Or kin? Yorick's jaw tightens. Tears brim. Daughter. In Lannisport. Guarded. He spits. Lion's claws long. Robert lowers hammer. Send Raven to Casterly. Girl safe for truth spilled. Yorick laughs hollow. Ink cannot outpace dagger. Visenya moves, voice like wind chimes. Tell truth? And Wolfpack guards the girl. Wolfpack. Yorick scoffs. Ned signals Kale Rivers. The captain of the watch appears. 40 men ride west at dawn, Ned states star. Sworn only to Queen. No lion buys their steel. Yorick weighs. Finally, shoulders sag. Words spill. Obsidian crates stolen from Dragonstone, financed by Lannister gold, funneled to clandestine guild in Flea Bottom. Forging perfect shards for silent kills. Target lists. Harbor granaries, city watch commanders, even maesters rumored loyal to Starks. Granary blaze was distraction. Real aim, crates of stored wildfire in hidden cellar. Never ignited thanks to Arya's swift venting. Robert's rage simmers volcanic. Tywin denies involvement, but funds chaos. Enough. Ned meets his gaze. Proof still circumstantial. Lannister gold buys half the city. Must be careful. Arya steps between. The hinge split along spoke piercing sea. Visenya's dream. Obsidian shards thrown to river tonight. It begins. Robert grips hammer. Then we tighten hinges with iron and truth. 2 dawns later, secret conclave convenes within Godswood. Robert, Ned, Arya, Visenya, Catelyn, Stannis newly returned, plus Davos and Varys. Snow nets weirwood branches, red leaves flutter scarlet teardrops. Robert speaks. Lion threatens realm through shadow. We answer in sunlight. Ned proposes presenting evidence to expanded council. Let guild representatives witness Yorick's confession under milk of the poppy truth draught. Stannis Ergus Ezira of Lannister mines. Choke gold at source. Davos cautions that cutting purse may spur roar. Catelyn suggests summoning Tywin to River Run's neutral ground for parley under guest right. Arya contemplates. Visenya, quiet, traces pattern in snow. Wheels within wheels. Remove one spoke, wheel balances, or collapses. Stannis snorts. Cut lion's head and cart rolls. Or kills Cartwright. Davos counters. Arya lifts her gaze to Weirwood. We show the realm that wolves and dragons do not fear sunlight. Let Tywin's schemes scorch under public eye. If he denies, he reveals guilt. If he admits, he bends. Robert nods, decision coalescing. Open tribunal. Evidence laid before guilds, faith, commons. Invite Tywin. He answers, or guilt speaks loud. Stannis scowls but acquiesces. Ned drafts summons. The great tribunal assembles one fortnight later in the Dragon Pit. Once cradled to beasts of flame, now vast amphitheater for judgment. Stands bristle with tradesmen, septons, smiths, sailors, small folk wrapped in patched cloaks. Banners of every major house flutter under stark winter sun. At arena's center rises a timber platform draped in direwolf stag colors. Arya stands upon it, flanked by Ned and Stannis. Robert presides behind, hammer across, lap, Batayid. Visenya seats among Braavosi ambassadorial box, Titan crest shimmering. Tywin enters last, crimson cloak sweeping. He mounts stairs with leonine grace, stands across from platform on stone dais ringed by his bannermen. Ned reads charges. Theft of crown property, conspiracy to commit arson, attempted murder of subjects by agents bearing Lannister insignia. Evidence displayed, confiscated obsidian blades, Yorick sworn deposition, ledger sheets linking rock gold to Dragonstone docks, testimony of smiths who shaped blades. Murmurs ripple, some gasp. Others sneer disbelief. Tywin's face masks emotion. He speaks, voice carrying. Ledger can be forged, deposition coerced. Obsidian bought legally by independent factors. A lion brooch proves only loyalty of thieves to bright sigil. He spreads arms. The crown's neat for scapegoat, perhaps, Cloud's judgment. Catelyn appears, presenting the hook of proof. A wax-sealed promissory note from Casterly Vault, discovered among Yorick's effects. Tywin eyes flare, minuscule but seen. The seal authentic, signet of Lannister steward. He counters swiftly, a note stolen from Rock archives. Ravens intercepted for ransom. Forgeries. Robert stands, hammerhead thudding wood. Then produce steward to deny handwriting. Tywin's jaw tenses. My steward perished last moon. Fell from cliff path. Tragic. Gasps again, whispers of foul play. Robert's voice booms. Too many falls shadow your path, Lord Tywin. This realm will not tumble with them. Tywin's gaze sweeps crowd. If the realm calls me traitor, let gods judge. Trial by combat. My champion against crowns. Audience erupts. Arya exchanges glance with Ned. Robert's grip tightens. Stannis steps forward but Arya raises hand. The charges name harm against small folk, she states. Let champion stand among them. A hush. From commons, throng emerges a burly baker, whose arm bears brand of first riot. Flesh still scarred. He kneels. For queen who saved my life from fire, I'll fight lion's dog. Tywin smirks. I choose Sir Gregor Clegane. Cries of dismay surge. The mountain at Casterly's side looms. Visor down. Robert roars, outrage, slaughter. Arya touches his sleeve. Let the hammer guide shoulder. She turns to stands. Any champion of crown claim right. Footfalls echo. Dot. A figure strides from Braavosi box. Tall, slender, half mask of black velvet. She removes mask. Lady Nymeria Sand, Obara's sister, spear train. Oberyn's daughter bows. I wield spear, for realm. Robert hesitates. Gregor towers 2 men tall. Nymeria agile but slender. Yet honor compels. Trial set at sundown. Sun dips crimson behind dragon pit arches. Torches blaze. Spectators hush. In arena center, Gregor Clegane stands in plate, thick as stove iron, greatsword glinting dull. Nymeria circles. Spear point catching last light. Blade snapping like whip. Signal horn blows. Gregor charges, earth shaking. Nymeria springs aside. Spear jabbing thigh, gap, got bloody. Steel scrapes. Sparks. Gregor swings sword, air screaming. Nymeria ducks, roll, slash across greave strap, buckle loosens. Crowd roars. Tywin's eyes narrow. Arya grips railing, knuckles white, heart thunder. Visenya's lips move. Silent counts. Gregor feints left, back swings. Blade grazes Nymeria's shoulder, blood spray, fine mist. She stumbles, rights. Spear butt slams visor, staggers him. She retreats, panting. Gregor laughs gravel. Charges anew. Too swift. Nymeria trapped against pillar. Gregor heaves sword overhead. An arrow whistles from stands. Sir Davos? No. A cloaked archer, unknown. Arrow hits Gregor's neck between gorget plates. Sword strike wavers. Spear flashes, plunges through armpit seam. Gregor roars, drops blade, seizes spear shaft, snaps it, yet blood gushes. He falls to knees, gasping. Silence shatters into shouts. Guards seize Archer, revealed as cell sail sworn by lion coins. Gregor collapses. Nymeria staggers back, wound leaking but alive. Robert rises. God's judge. Tywin's champion felled. Metero. Tywin's face marble. Arya points at Archer. More lion claws revealed. At Robert's nod, guards drag Archer before dais. He spits gold coin from mouth, defiant. Lions pay. Arya picks coin, flings it to ground. Robert's voice booms. Lord Tywin, by God's judgment you stand guilty of conspiracy. Yield titles, lands, and submit to Queen's mercy, or face attainder. Tywin's green eyes burn, but he bows. Stiff, hard. Casterly rock yields. Cheers erupt. Some jeer, others weep relief. Arya steps forward, voice clear. Tywin Lannister will return to Rock under guard. His mines pay restitution to small folk harmed. The Rock's surplus grain fills Dragon Gate granaries. She pauses. Yet House Lannister retains lands under oath renewed. Serve crown with clean hands, prove loyalty by deed. Lion's roar may yet guard realm. Some boo, others nod. Robert studies her, pride gleaming. Weeks slide. Snow melts to slush. Then tender crocus shoots. Under new edict, Lannister coin funds orphan refuge foundations. Bricks stack by thousands. Arya visits site often, sleeves rolled, laying mortar beside bakers, sailors, smiths. Tywin, miles west, writes careful letters of compliance, though ink lines stiff with pride's ache. Visenya oversees library wing, commissioning Braavosi architects Taktarat. She and Arya spar still, but more often pore over scrolls of Valyrian steel folding, or dream of new throne designs, oak and iron entwined, high enough yet humble. One blue morning, Ned finds Arya seated alone outside Godswood, her new tortoiseshell dagger carving charred scrap. He sits beside. Hinge holds, she says softly. For now, he answers. She glances skyward where gulls wheel. Do wheels ever stop turning? Only when story ends. He smiles, but ours spins on. She finishes carving. A small wolf pup, rough yet earnest. She sets it atop weirwood root. Then we keep shaping spokes. The sun climbs, warming frost into dew, and father and daughter sit amid scent of pine and cedar, listening to drums of builders raising new refuge walls beyond Castle Gate. Far away hammers ring. Robert's men forging anchors for Stannis sails. Tywin smiths reforging coins into seed plows. Life and labor beating like twin hearts. A fresh chapter opens, uncertain, perilous, radiant with possibility. Its pages waiting beneath the watchful eyes of a wolf queen who has learned to steady her mind. A dragon-blooded sister who dreams of wheels, and the tireless guardians who stand beside them ready to meet whatever storm or dawn the turning years may bring. Ingen, Tengdawei. Snowmelt hurried through the gutters of King's Landing like 1,000 whispering creeks, carrying away the soot of winter, and revealing beneath the grime a city caught halfway between memory and reinvention. Candlemakers scrubbed their shutters, potters whitewashed kilns, and in the tangled lanes of flea-bottomed children played at queens and dragons, one group brandishing stick hammers, while the others flapped torn linen for wings. A hush of anticipation stretched across the capital, for the Sea Lord of Braavos was due within the moon turn, and rumors said his fleet brought riches enough to drown the Iron Bank itself. At dawn, Arya Stark slipped from her chambers long before Septa Arya could fuss over braids or lace. She padded through chilly corridors, past tapestries of Visenya Targaryen's conquests, and down the spiral steps that opened upon the narrow sea wind. The air tasted of salt and new beginnings. She liked the hour when the city belonged to gulls and lamplighters stumbling home, when the dust of yesterday's intrigues had not yet settled upon fresh stone. From the armory she fetched Needle's iron-forged cousin, a sparring sword nicked and sweat-worn, and twirled it until the numbness left her fingers. A quick flick, the blade hissed, carving arcs only she could see, one for each promise she had made since slipping the crown's mantle over her shoulders. Sir Barristan joined her as dawn pinked the sky, cloak swirling like a swan's wing. They saluted in silence. Their wooden blades cracked together, once, twice, then the dance began. Arya pressed, Barristan yielded, Barristan riposted, Arya darted under his guard. Feet slapped flagstones dusted with frost. Breath coiled in little dragons of steam, and somewhere deep within the din, Arya felt the rhythm Ned called the heart of balance. Hips steady, knees soft, mind anchored behind her sternum, even as thoughts flickered like lantern fire. By the bout's end, she measured her bruises and found fewer than yesterday's. Progress tasted sweeter than honeyed mead. Barristan nodded approval, then gestured to the parapet. Together they leaned into the wind, watching the sweep of the city unfurl below. Market squares filled with carts of wilted greens. Smoke spiraled from bakery chimneys. Bells tolled from the great sept to summon the faithful. Beyond the walls, fields shone silver with dew where spring wheat pierced black earth. In those moments, the dream of a gentler kingdom seemed almost within reach, yet experience whispered caution. Dreams were delicate, and dragons fickle. Later during the nooning council, Arya found herself flanked by Ned and Catelyn at the long cedar table in the solar overlooking Blackwater Bay. Light lanced through blue-tinted glass panes, painting maps with wavery sea crests. Sergeant Cale Rivers reported on harbor defenses. 2 new scorpions installed on the Mudgate towers, additional quiver racks stocked with barbed bolts should Stepstone's pirates test their luck. Mr. Colvin detailed grain reserves, healthy thanks to the Lannister restitution levies, though rural Crownlanders grumbled about double planting quotas. Even Stannis, newly returned from patrol, delivered sober but promising numbers. The royal fleet was up to 25 seaworthy warships, with 5 more hulls nearing completion in the shipyards at Blackwater Rush. When the Sea Lord's delegation became the topic, debate unfolded like steel on an anvil. Some worried the Braavosi wanted tariff privilege edging out Westerosi merchants. Others feared the Iron Bank would leverage the visit to press for harsher repayment schedules. Catelyn, ever canny, suggested binding hospitality to visible charity. Host a grand public feast along the Riverwalk, letting small folk witness foreign wealth paying for their bread. Stannis harumphed at the cost, but Robert, seated beneath a drafty arrow slit with hammer resting across his thighs, thumped approval. "Let the people taste the fruit of peace," he declared, voice a gravelly thunder. "If they remember the feast when next a lord calls them to arms, mayhap they'll spit in that lord's mead." Visenya entered then in a swirl of twilight blue silk, a tomum of Braavosi law balanced on her arm. She inclined her head first to Arya, then to Robert, who greeted her with the warm sheen in his eyes he spared for but few. Visenya had grown taller this past year, willowy, her silver dark hair bound in knotwork, loops learned from Taroshi seamstresses, who now staffed the budding library wing she oversaw. She carried diplomacy the way others carried daggers, hidden until flashing. "The Sea Lord will arrive on the tide 3 days hence," she announced softly, but with resonance. "His envoy requests permission to stage a pantomime upon the river, acrobats upon barges, a fireworks display at dusk, and trained dolphins leaping through burning hoops." "Burning what?" Danis sputtered. Visenia's lips quirked at their corners. "It is apparently a Bravosi tradition, honoring the first mariner who dared sail beyond the neck. The hoops represent the ring of ice and fire, a mythical barrier circled by danger." Robert's chuckle rattled window panes. "Let them leap through hoops of flame, so long as they don't set my docks alight." Arya felt a tug of tension beneath the laughter. Fireworks near granaries reminded her of the night flames, licked straw and obsidian knives hissed in the dark. She exchanged a quick glance with Ned, who dipped his chin, reading her mind. Guard commanders would be doubled. Watchers posted along every rooftop. After council, Arya sought the half-constructed orphan refuge, perched just inside the Dragon Gate. Builders bustled like ants across a skeleton of sturdy oak beams. Tywins donated wood, ironically, and each clang of mallet on nail carried across the courtyard, where children chased a rag-stuffed ball. Some of the little ones sketched crude wolves in the dirt. Others shouted seaborne songs taught by Summer Isle sailors. The refuge's head matron, stout Lady Josiane, greeted Arya with flour-dusted hands and a face bright as sunrise. She offered a tour. The dormitory walls nearly closed, the kitchens already boasting a massive stone hearth, the central atrium that would feature a sundial carved in both Valyrian and Westerosi numerals. Arya walked the future corridors, envisioning straw-filled pallets replaced by feather tickings, cold stone floors warmed by rush mats, fear replaced by possibility. Each beam felt like a promise hammered into place. That night, a brittle frost settled again, restoring the rooftop's pale memory of snow. Arya sat beside Visenya at a corner table in the library wings, reading Nish, lantern-glow limning scrolls. Visenya traced an illustration of the Titan of Braavos, its bronze fist lifted against sea-storm skies. "Braavos stands because it bends only to the wind," she murmured, as if reciting a lesson. "Stone will crumble, steel will rust, but bronze endures in salt and time, so long as it is tended." "Do wheels endure?" Arya asked, recalling the shattering vision. "They break," Visenya said, "but when they turn, they move worlds." Arya contemplated the map spread before them. Rivers, roads, the wall etched like a knife wound across the north. Ravens had brought news, wildling tribes massing in numbers unseen for decades. Lord Commander Corgyle wrote of whites glimpsed beyond the frost fangs, dead men walking die. Half the realm scoffed, half prayed. Arya felt the familiar itch between her shoulders, danger yet unmeasured, but the capital required every breath of her attention. She could not ride for the wall, not yet. Robert joined them near midnight, drink in hand, but eyes clear. He laid out small wooden tokens shaped like ships, castles, crowns, pieces of a strategy board he and Ned once used as squires in the Vale. Becky, the scullery girl, had painted each token bright colors. Robert shoved the Tyroshi caravel piece toward Braavos' galleon. 2 tokens clacked. "If the pirates flee west, we trap them between Dragonstone Spit and the Stepstone Shoals." He peered at Arya. "But it's your board now, little wolf. One trap seldom snares all fish," she said. She moved a direwolf token, representing land-held levy forces, up the Blackwater to secure ferry lines. "We hold the river, cut their retreat, starve them of fresh water." "Who taught you river war?" Robert asked, surprised. She shrugged. "Maps and Davos." Robert's grin showed white teeth. "Keep thinking like that, and one day even Tywin's ghost will rattle chains in fear." At that name, a hush stole into the lantern light. Tywin had been silent these past months, sending grain by schedule, paying fines without complaint. But spies whispered of closed-door gatherings in Lannisport, of bannermen training double time, of Septa watchers noting new shipments of gilt armor trimmed in onyx. Tywin was too proud to abide humiliation for long. Arya suspected an axe waited in that quiet blade honed to perfection. 3 days later, horns blared along the mud gate. The Braavosi fleet unfurled scarlet and indigo, sails stitched with silver fish and moon crescents. Barges carried banners of House Antarian and Valentin, and arrayed upon their decks were jugglers balancing porcelain discs, sword swallowers shimmering in sequin jerkins, and those promised dolphins leaping arcs through wreaths of flame that hissed along iron hoops. Crowds packed the riverwalk, thundered cheers. Arya rode with Visenya ahead of the procession, followed by knights in double rows of black and white tabards. She felt both the thrill of spectacle and the coil of preparedness, eyes scanning rooftops, alley mouths. Wolves, after all, keep to underbrush. The Sea Lord himself was a broad-shouldered man with a shaven scalp and beard oiled into ringlets. He stepped ashore bearing a carved narwhal tusk staff capped with fire opal. "To Queen and Protector greetings," he boomed in heavily accented common tongue. Robert welcomed him with bluster, Arya with a curt nod, Visenya with the flawless bow of Braavosi courtesy. They processed up the wide steps toward the Red Keep, acrobats tossing sparkling spheres over their heads. All seemed splendor, until a juggler slipped, spheres clattered, and one shattered. Not glass, but an egg of thin clay packed with ash that exploded into blinding cloud. Screams erupted. From the haze, a narrow crossbow bolt hissed for Arya's heart. She ducked, visions of Barristan's practice echoing, and felt the bolt tear a thin line through her hair braid instead. Guards surged, shields raised. Another bolt whistled, embedding in a stark banner. Robert bellowed. Visenya pulled Arya behind a colonnade, and archers scanned the high balconies. Barristan's shout rang, "There!" On a third-floor ledge, a cloaked figure braced second crossbow out. But before the string could release, the assassin jerked. Arrow through eye, fired from somewhere unseen. Body pitched, falling to cobbles with sick crunch. When the ash cleared, chaos ebbed into stunned silence. The Sea Lord, dusty but unhurt, looked to Arya. "My shame," he said gravely, "that my own performers hid blades." His eyes cut like sapphire ice. Braavos owes debt of blood. Arya steadied breathing. "The blame belongs to gold," thought their loyalty, "not to you." Yet she wondered if any gold could so quickly suborn performers chosen by the Sea Lord himself, or had hidden fingers turned them earlier. The assassin, a narrow-faced youth, bore no sigil, but sewn inside his jerkin, Ned found a scrap of parchment with a sigil sketched in red. A broken wheel pierced by 3 daggers. No one recognized it. Back in the small council chamber, tension coiled like a viper. Stannis argued for immediate arrest of every Braavosi entertainer. The Sea Lord insisted he would question them himself. Ned brokered. Joint inquiry, equal numbers of Crown and Braavosi interrogators. Arya agreed, but trust were thinner than a hair on Tyrosh steel. That night, while revels resumed under heavy watch, Arya studied the broken wheel sigil. Visenya traced it. 3 daggers for 3 hinges, she murmured. Or 3 realms. 7 kingdoms, Arya corrected. Visenya shook head. Not 7 forever. Wheels break into pieces of choice. Bersau. The next day brought revelations that set the court on edge. The captured entertainers confessed under mild torture that they were hired by a masked woman calling herself the Elder Sister, who paid with gold coins minted not by Lannister nor Braavosi dies, but by something older, Valyrian glyphs around a sun eclipse. Robert cursed legends. Ned studied coins with maesters. Arya felt the old dread of the unknown creep closer. Another raven arrived from the wall. Wildling scouts spoke of white shadows stalking the northernmost ice rivers, giants herding south in fear. Ned read the message with knuckles pale. "If the wall fails," he said, "all our games of throne and coin crumble to dust." Robert hammered table. "Then we ride north." "Not yet," Arya cautioned. "If we abandon the capital now, old schemes blossom. We need allies." Allies came from improbable quarters. Doran Martell wrote, offering an envoy to discuss a marriage alliance between his heir Quentyn and Visenya. Or perhaps Nymeria Sand and one of Catelyn's sons. The Reach, under young Lord Willis Tyrell, sent a train of wagons laden with apple brandy and seeds for hardy winter wheat. All offered for friendship rather than profit. Even Lord Manderley, that portly lord of White Harbor, dispatched 3 sleek river schooners for the royal fleet, painted in direwolf gray. Yet between each letter of goodwill lurked the shadow of Tywin Lannister. Word came that the mines of the Rock boomed day and night, forging not coins but weapons. Breastplates embossed with roaring lions, spears tipped with black iron heads of rare design. Bannermen marched in secret on moonless nights, and rumors swirled of sellsword companies. Golden Company exiles, once bound to Blackfires, entertained at feast tables within the Rock. Arya dreamed strange visions. A sea of glassy ice stretching beyond sight, and at its center, the Iron Throne melted into a pool of dark water, while a lion's paw dragged something bright beneath. She rose sweating. Visenya, in her own bed near the library, dreamed concurrently of a wheel forged anew from weirwood and ice, spinning beneath a sky of falling stars. When they compared dreams, they understood nothing but the certainty that winds from north and west converged upon them. The Sea Lord's negotiations moved forward amid tight security. He agreed to purchase a 10-year lease on the King's Landing dock district, pledging coin flows that would near double the city's income. In exchange, he sought rights to establish a Braavosi consulate within the Red Keep's outer ward, a stone seat for the Iron Bank's auditors, a promise that debts owed would never again be postponed. Ned stiffened at that, for he smelled a chain, but Robert, seeing the ledger's bleeding columns, nodded. Arya inserted a caveat. After 5 years, the Crown retained power to buy back the lease should coin flow surpass a threshold. The Sea Lord tapped his narwhal staff in applause and signaled his scribes to draft the parchment. 2 nights before the Sea Lord was to depart, a dull thud echoed through the lower bailey. Guards arrived to find the Braavosi scribe Naro Tifan impaled on his own ink knife, throat slit ear to ear. On his body, another broken wheel symbol, drawn in fresh blood. Panic rekindled. The Sea Lord stormed into council with accusations. Robert roared counter-suspicions. Only Arya's calmer voice halted escalation. She proposed assembling a covert, investigative circle. Herself, Visenya, Sir Davos, and the Sea Lord's most trusted bodyguard, an aging bravo named Chiaro Nerys. They would trace the broken wheel before sunrise, independent of both courts, answerable to none. They began at the scribe's lodgings, parchment scraps riddled with financial cipher, a ledger showing subtle adjustments, overpayments to Taroshi spice factors, whose company crests featured, faintly, wheels within waves. Davos recognized the symbol. The Ebon Tide, a smuggling consortium rumored to ferry both silks and shadows across seas. "Follow the coin," he insisted. They followed. Through candlelit streets, they moved. Arya leading with catfoot care, Visenya scanning shadows as if reading breeze currents. They braved cellars where vintners diluted arbor red with seawater, climbed scaffold ladders to thatched lofts where Tyroshi accountants slept off mandrake wine. At length they found a ledger page linking Ebon Tide shipments to warehouses along the Blackwater. Warehouses purchased recently by a Lannisport merchant using a false Braavosi name. They raced for the docks. The moon rode high, slicing ripples to shards of silver. A storm wind wailed, rattling masts like cage bars. From a mid-river barge, lantern light flickered behind drawn curtains. Inside they discovered crates stamped with the broken wheel, and stacked with the obsidian knives absent from Dragonstone inventories. More than anywhere else had been found. Standing guard over them were sellswords in gray cloaks unmarked, except one wore a ring carved as lion devouring a fish. Lion and wheel. A partnership of necessity. A skirmish erupted, quick, furious. Davos hamstrung one guard with sailor's knife. Chiaro skewered another through ribs. Arya crossed blades with the ringed captain, matching strikes she had drilled by dawnlight. Steel rang, sparks flew, until she ducked beneath a sweeping slash and rose inside his guard, punching pommel to jaw. He reeled. She tripped him over rope coil. He slammed deck. Visenya planted foot on chest, blade at throat. "Speak," she hissed. The captain spat blood. "The sister moves unseen. Wheels break kingdoms. You lose already. He bit something, a glass capsule between teeth. Poison. Foam mottled his lips. Head slackened. Another dead clue. They hauled crates ashore, posted 20 Stormlanders, and by first blush of dawn rode for the Red Keep. Council convened in emergency. Evidence mounted. Tywin's gold minted the weapons. Braavosi false names shielded transfers. Yet a third party orchestrated murders under cover of Braavosi pageantry. The elder sister stitched threads. But Tywin was not upon the rock. Ravens announced he rode east with small retinue. Toward the capital? Or to the Vale? Varys' whisper network caught glimpses. A golden coach crossing Gold Road, escorted by men in somber gray rather than crimson. The broken wheel cloaks again. Tywin inside or a prisoner. Arya felt storms converge. She summoned Thoros of Myr, called south by Catelyn months prior to serve as refuge chaplain because his fiery sermons delighted children. Thoros examined wheel sigil, muttered prophecy from old scrolls. When three spokes bleed, the sun will set in shattered dawn, and sisters of stone shall rise. He shrugged, hung over, but Arya filed away the odd phrasing. The Sea Lord's fleet departed under heavy guard, but not before he gifted Arya a slim dagger of pale steel filigreed with sapphire wire. Secrets lurk below calm water, he warned. Cut deep when you must. Their pact held, though trust now wore cracks. Spring's first full moon rose like a scarlet coin the night Tywin Lannister's coach appeared at the city's western gate. He traveled with only Sir Kevan, the Maester Illifer, and a dozen silent brothers of the faith, gray hoods concealing faces. Robert greeted him in courtyard with half the court armored, torches burning blue in east wind. Tywin emerged gaunter than memory, gold hair threaded by silver. I come in chains of my own forging, he said, unlatching sword belt, letting it fall. The lion bends knee. He knelt. Beside him, Sir Kevan did likewise, though tears bristled in beard. Robert strode forward, confusion mingling with caution. Rise, explain. Tywin lifted hollow eyes. Darkness rides from the west, he said. I thought I commanded it, but I was only steed. The elder sister is daughter of ancient vengeance. She consumed my captains, my coin, used my name. She holds Casterly Rock even now. A collective gasp. Tywin unfurled parchment, black seal shaped as seven-pointed wheel. She calls herself Mireia Rivers, the Sand Sister. Bastard of the last reign of Castamere, hidden child who nursed on tales of burrowed lions and drowned sons. She rallied every soul wronged by my banner. His voice cracked for the first time Arya ever heard. They come here next. Robert's thunderous baritone rattled timbers. We hold fast. Wolves, stags, dragons, stand together. Damatel. In the hours that followed, Tywin revealed the wheel's scheme. Years of infiltration, forging alliances among exiled rainkin. Tyroshi smugglers descended from towns raised under lion claws, even northern hill clans, nursing ancient debts. Obsidian was but edge, her true blade aimed at the realm's heart. So strife between Crown and Braavos, ignite famine, and surge from conquered rock with armies of bitter men, hoping to split the seven kingdoms before winter locked passes. She wields wildfire too, Tywin admitted. Old stashes left by Aerys' pyromancers. She stole the rock's recipe vaults. Arya paced before the hearth where logs popped. Flames painted shadow crowns upon the walls. Then we meet her before she sets tinder. She stabbed dagger through map at the Riverlands. Halfway between Lannisport and King's Landing. The Mander green grass battleground. Open plain, little risk of wildfire near towns. Stannis objected. Draw her east, and we risk burning the Heartlands. Our choice, Arya countered. Or wait behind walls. CD, initiative. Wheels break stationary spokes. No. Visenya placed pale hand over Arya's on the dagger hilt. We forge a new hinge there. Council planned through night. Ned gathered northern levies. Stannis readied fleet to choke western ports. Doran's envoy pledged Dornish spears ready to march north once snow melted from red mountains. Ser Barristan drilled city watch into vanguard phalanx. Tywin requested one boon: lead a column of voluntary rock knights, those still sworn to crown, against his usurped home. Arya granted it, though she sensed layers within layers of his atonement. But redemption, like trust, begins with a small coin cast into deep pool. On the eve of departure, Arya stood atop the Tower of the Hand beside Ned and Robert, moon silvering their armor. Wind tugged cloaks. Banners snapped. Direwolf, stag, and new standard she and Visenya designed. A stylized wheel mended with a sword's hilt across its fracture. "Ready?" Robert asked, hefting warhammer, still deadly, though his belly thickened with years. Arya checked straps of greaves. "A wheel moves worlds. We only need push." Ned placed gloved hand on her shoulder. "We ride at dawn. Guard your mind, daughter of winter." "Then, hen?" She nodded, swallowing the hard stone of fear. Below, torches stitched orange trails along the river gate, where soldiers formed columns. Drums pounded a heartbeat echo. White ravens soared overhead, winging toward the wall, messengers of quieter but greater doom. Yet tonight, the Queen of 11 Years would ride to face a storm forged from old songs and unburied bones. Before descending, Arya looked south where the dark river met blacker sea. She imagined the dolphins of Braavos leaping through fiery hoops, the broken wheel sigil sinking, sparks hissing into deep. She imagined Visenya's library scrolls, pages fluttering like wings of knowledge. She imagined children tucked in refuge beds, safe for now. All these images she sheathed behind her ribs as one might store knives of purpose, to be drawn when resolve faltered. She whispered to the wind, "Hold fast." And the wind carried answer, half growl, half promise, as if direwolves roamed the sky unseen. "The pack remains." So the march began, hammer, quill, and dream united, toward the rolling plains where old grudges waited, and where the fate of a fledgling realm, crowned in wolf gray and tempered in dragonglass, would meet its fiercest test beneath a winter-bright sun.